in Edmonton and Scott stayed in Saskatchewan, but the Hendricksons remain brothers, and that's not going to change anytime soon. The two large men will speak about each other, tongues sometimes firmly planted in cheeks. They call it fall out here. We call it summer in most parts of the Great White North. It was about 28 degrees in Baltimore yesterday and warmer than that today. Some residue from Hurricane Opal around here for a few days. That's long gone, though, although the field is a touch damp. And now we're set for the kickoff. It's the next item of business. Don?
Well, Scott, the Saskatchewan Roughriders will receive. Baltimore won the toss, and the Stallions have deferred the choice until the second half. Don Matthews is hoping that his Stallions can wrap up first place in the Southern Division with a victory this afternoon. Only once this season have the Stallions lost at Memorial Stadium. Carlos Huerta will perform the kickoff chores for the Baltimore Stallions. 28-24 before 30,000 plus last Sunday at Taylor Field in Regina. Willie Hinchcliffe and Aaron Ruffin are back to receive the Carlos Huerta kickoff. Hinchcliffe with world-class speed. He's a sprinter of some renown in the past for New Zealand. But it is Aaron Ruffin who handles the opening kickoff, and he fights his way up close to about the 34-yard line. Now, there was a heavy rainfall on Friday and on Thursday night in the Baltimore area, and this field will be a little slick, perhaps. Warren Jones, 8 touchdown passes this year, 7 interceptions. Don't be surprised if Warren Jones, in spreading his receivers around, sends 4 receivers to the same side on occasion this afternoon.
Will come with quads to one side, and what that does is you give it an ISO on the backside so you have an opportunity to get the safety out of the middle of the field.
They hit screen to Donald Narcisse, and the streak has now extended to 141 games as Donald Narcisse takes that quick hitch screen and gets it up to about the 40-yard line, a gain of about 5. Gene Mikowski making only his second start for Saskatchewan, playing the right guard position along the O-line today. Donald Narcisse has an opportunity to hit 1,000 yards in the season, having an outstanding year, 141 consecutive games now, catching passes for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Fake handoff to Mims, but Alfred Payton was not at all fooled, and Alfred Payton gets his 17th quarterback sack of the year.
Swag, as he's so dearly known by his teammates, as you said, came free from the backside. Jones looking for the naked boot. Payton right on top. He hadn't had a sack in his past 3 ball games, but now he's picked up the 17th of the season.
Toby Cates is back to receive this third down punt from Brent Matich along with Chris Wright. Both of the punters in this afternoon's football game are left-footed kickers. Chris Wright, the return man, brings it back to the 32-yard line, and Dwayne Provo was there to make the tackle, limiting the return to 4 yards. Tracy Ham has really directed a balanced attack this year for the Baltimore Stallions. 397 passing plays for Baltimore, 397 running plays.
Don, when Coach Matthews was in Saskatchewan, people always questioned why he didn't like to run the ball, but he was always lining up with 2nd down and 11, he alluded to. But here with Mike Pringle, it's 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3.
Yeah, he said it wasn't that I didn't like the running game, I didn't like unsuccessful runs. And here's the toss to Robert Drummond, and there's a penalty flag as Drummond gets up to the 51-yard line. That will be a pickup of close to 8, depending on the penalty call. Bud Steen is the referee this afternoon.
It's going to be a personal foul on Saskatchewan.
Unnecessary roughness. Saskatchewan, number 93. First down.
The unnecessary roughness against Tim Edwards. This is the way the Stallions line up. Their best offensive lineman throughout the season has been Mike Withacombe, and he has played every offensive line position except center. Gerald Alphin makes a start at a slot back position for the Stallions. He played briefly last Sunday at Taylor Field in Regina in his first game in Baltimore and caught 3 passes. Fake handoff inside. Ham rolling to his left, being pursued by Rogers. Gets away from him and then is forced out of bounds, but will have very close to a first down.
To go back to the story about Alfin, Ham felt very comfortable having Alfin in the lineup. The 3 passes he caught last week in Saskatchewan were all for first downs, and it kept drives alive at critical point. But Tracy Ham, Saskatchewan, feels they need to keep him inside the pocket this afternoon to have success.
And Gerald Alfin, James, will take some of the heat off Chris Armstrong. They won't be able to double team the other slot. Here's the handoff to Pringle. Pringle to the outside on 2nd and 1, and he's forced out of bounds, but not before he got a first down. Brian Randall took him out, but I think this is going to be called back by a holding penalty against Baltimore.
Don, back to that story about Gerald Alfin. When he was in Winnipeg with Gerald Wilcox, there was a great tandem of receivers.
Holding. Baltimore number 81. 2nd down repeated.
Inside for the Bombers. Wilcox had 111 receptions last year. Alfin had 18 touchdown receptions, so you really couldn't get a bead on which receiver the quarterback was going to go to. They're looking for that same type of combination here in Baltimore at the end of this season.
And Alfin, after leaving Winnipeg, had an opportunity to sign with Memphis. He was also offered a contract with Baltimore, opted to come to the Stallions, and is starting for the first time. He likes this organization and the chemistry here and the opportunity to perhaps go to a Grey Cup.
And that's what every player wants in his career, an opportunity to go to the Grey Cup.
Time count. Baltimore number 8. 2nd down repeated.
Back-to-back penalties against the Stallions. First it was holding against Chris Armstrong, and now a time count call against quarterback Tracy Ham.
Not a customary Don Matthews trait to have his team take undisciplined penalties such as that back-to-back, but now Tracy Ham is in a precarious situation with 2nd and 16.
Ham is operating out of the shotgun. Good protection. Now he's flushed out of there. Gets away from the tackle, got away from Jurison, and he's going to run for a first down. Reminiscent of what took place at Taylor Field in Regina in the 4th quarter when he scampered 45 yards for the go-ahead touchdown. This is a 21-yard run for a first down.
Jurison was on his heels. You'll see Jurison come from the bottom of your screen, but up top, Librant Robinson will come underneath, lose contain, and Jurison could not track him down. If Robinson had a contain outside, Ham would have not had the opportunity to run, but that's the intelligence of a Tracy Ham.
The number 2 rusher, 502 yards coming into this game. Bobby Jurison finally managed to battle his way through, but just got a piece of Tracy Ham, knocked him a little off stride, but couldn't bring him down. Ham with time dumps it off over the middle to Chris Armstrong, and Armstrong takes it out of bounds with another first down, Baltimore.
Tracy Ham at his finest. You talked about he's Baltimore's number 2 rusher, but he's also surpassed the 6,000-yard mark in his CFL career, and he adds so much pressure to a defense with his mobility.
Well, Chris Armstrong came into this game, James, needing just 79 yards to become a 1,000-yard receiver.
For his 2nd successive season here in Baltimore, and he was a free agent acquisition also by the Stallions, who was out of a job in Las Vegas, called Matthews, brought him in. He's been a success ever since.
Tracy Ham looks into the corner. Cates is open, and Cates is tackled at about the 7-yard line. Brian Randall and Terrell Ulmer came over to make the tackle. They talk about the world-class speed of this guy, Toby Cates. They say he ran on the grass a 4.3940.
And that's blazing. They're hoping an opportunity to get him deep. He only had 5 receptions coming into this game, but he is that deep threat to complement those 2 great inside receivers in Armstrong and Alfin. Now you have that man on the corner who can just blaze past defensive backs.
Hand off to Pringle, and Pringle drives inside the 5-yard line for a Baltimore first down. We were talking at the start, James, about Pringle possibly getting 2,000 yards this year. The performance of the team may mitigate against that, because if they clinch first place today, Don Matthews said that Pringle might not see the ball as much in the last couple of games.
Well, what he means by that is that he wants to rest his starters more, have them healthy for the playoffs, and so when that time comes around, you won't have players nicked. Pringle missed the first game of the playoffs last season.
into the end zone, incomplete. It was intended for Armstrong, a quick release by Tracy Ham, and the throw was just a little low. Now in the end zone, I talked about the rains on Thursday and Friday morning, and chunks of grass are coming up as players try and make their cuts, and it looked as though Armstrong slipped.
It is very loose in the end zone, but back to that story about Pringle. Saskatchewan held Mike Pringle to 74 yards last week, so this is a defense that has a lot of success against him. Coach Jim Daly had an excellent game plan last week in Taylor Field.
Yeah, they said they were having problems popping Pringle into the secondary last week. Here's Tracy Ham on a quarterback draw. He loses the football. Saskatchewan has recovered. Terrell Ulmer appeared to come up with the football as Gary Rogers was able to strip the ball from him, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders snuff out a Baltimore drive at the 4. Gary Rogers credited with stripping the ball from Tracy Ham. He was in the grasp of Dan Rashovich when Gary Rogers came from behind to knock the ball loose.
Rogers came from the bottom, but that's excellent angles by your linebackers to fill the gaps as they're designed and come in and be alert enough to strip the ball away when Ham stuck it out. You recall in the Grey Cup last year, that possibly cost Baltimore the game when Tracy Ham got close to the goal line and held the ball out quite loosely, and he was stripped and BC recovered.
So the Riders take over 1st and 10 back at their own 3-yard line. Warren Jones has 4 receivers to the left. He gives the ball to Robert Mims, and Mims brings it up to the 10-yard line. Robert Mims is a very interesting story. Twice the rushing leader in the CFL while in the employ of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Out of work last year.
Don, you talk about that. He was in Arizona doing nothing. Dan Rambo, director of player personnel for Saskatchewan, also has a home in Arizona, and he was down working on a video football game. Robert Mims was helping him out when Saskatchewan had a desperate need for a running back. We'll get back to that in a second.
Second down play. Robert Mims, the ball carrier again. He breaks a couple of tackles and brings it out to the 20-yard line.
Saskatchewan had tried several different running backs. The latest, Darren Joseph, who had a rib injury. Mims was available, came in, was able to pick up Coach Yock's offensive scheme, and he's had a lot of success after a year and a half of idleness.
Well, he had a 100-yard rushing game against Toronto on September the 23rd. Prior to that, Darren Joseph had a couple of 100-yard games against Ottawa and Winnipeg before he was hurt against Winnipeg. Out of the shotgun, 4 receivers to the right. Warren Jones in some trouble, and down he goes at the 16-yard line. Tackled there by Demetrius Maxey. This is the way Baltimore lines up defensively. Demetrius Maxey, they say, is almost a carbon copy of Gerald Bayless, who plays the nose tackle position for Baltimore and is a former Saskatchewan Roughrider. Matt Goodwin is back in the lineup after missing a couple of games, and they are happy to welcome him back to the linebacking position. Chris Johnson, the 5th player that the Stallions have had at safety this year, actually the first true safety. The others have all been converted cornerbacks. The pass broken up by Charles Anthony. It was intended for Donald Narcisse.
You talk about Charles Anthony. This is the player who's very familiar with the Saskatchewan offense prior to coming over here last year as a free agent. He read that route perfectly as he jumped it on Narcisse's curl. But Alfred Payton, he's going to have his hands full this afternoon with Pete Shorts, the big American right offensive tackle for Saskatchewan. Has 1 sack early. Can he duplicate that feat?
Matic will be kicking to Cates and Wright. And last week at Taylor Field, in the difference in the punting average between Matic and Josh Miller, the Baltimore Stallions over the course of the game felt they gained about 100 yards. Penalty flag as Wright is forced out of bounds and forced to do some hurdling at the Baltimore bench. That was a 45-yard punt, 7 yards on the return.
Greg Tucker, I think they're going to get with an illegal block for Baltimore, but one of the things you alluded to was about the difference in punt coverage. Matic cannot afford to outkick his coverage because of the great speed on Baltimore's special team.
No score in the opening quarter, 7:02 remaining. This year as a passer, Tracy Ham has had just one 300-yard plus passing game. and that was against Birmingham on September 9th. Last year, 3 times he passed for better than 300 yards, once for better than 400 yards. But Coach Don Matthews is extremely happy with the balance that this Baltimore team has in its passing and running attack. As pointed out earlier, exactly the same number of plays each way. The ball comes loose, and it appears as though Brian Randall may have come up with it. Volka and Rogers made the contact.
This is one of the things that plagued Mike Pringle early in his career, his tendency to put the ball on the ground. A counter play being run by Baltimore. He had gotten around the corner, but he held the ball out like Tracy Ham had, too loosely from his body. Neil Fort with the block to kick out on Rogers. Pringle up inside, but the strip by Glenn Kolka, strong arm, knocks it out.
Kolka knocked the ball loose, and the Roughriders have their second fumble recovery of this opening quarter. Good block, enabling Jones going to the outside, and he throws complete to Turner. Scott Hendrickson, a great block, enabling Jones to fire 17 yards to Albert Turner.
The misdirection once again, as Saskatchewan had an opportunity to get outside. The play fake sold Baltimore up front. Jones actually had 2 receivers. He had Elgard short, but he saw Turner deep, fired it out. Great reception, going high, bringing it in.
Gerald Bayless, a former teammate of Scott Hendrickson. The player taken out of the play, enabling Jones to get to the outside. Jones from the shotgun, throwing to the short side, and Albert Turner has the reception for a gain of about 4 yards. I said at the start of the telecast that Jones had a tendency to use his wideouts more than Tom Burgess, and they're ruling that Albert Turner was out of bounds when he made that catch. He didn't agree with the call, but Jones has thrown to both Narcisse and Turner early in the ballgame.
Well, he has a tendency to hold the ball longer than what Burgess would like to. Burgess wants to get rid of it quicker because he's not as elusive as Jones is.
Defensively, Tucker comes into the ballgame. Maxey out for Baltimore. Pass over the middle to Donald Narcisse, and he'll be close to a first down on the 2nd and 10 play. Douglas Kraft came up to make the tackle, and probably be about a foot shy.
Well, this Baltimore defense is a great pursuing defense, and Saskatchewan really has no choice but to go for it here on 3rd down and short. When you're fighting for that last spot in the playoff, you have to capitalize on every scoring opportunity that you get.
You know, it was interesting talking to Tom Burgess prior to the game. He said, we always feel that we're capable of winning, or playing well, I should say, but we don't think that we can win every game. And he said, that's the mentality we have to get into. So a 3rd down gamble. Robert Mims gets it as he drives inside the 15-yard line.
Donald Narcisse on that last reception to make it 3rd and 1, tied a career best with 86 receptions that he set back in 1990 to go along with his 6 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons and possibly reach his 7th this afternoon.
He could be one of 3 100-catch receivers this year in the CFL. It's almost certain that Dave Sapunjas and Alan Pitts, 96 and 94 with Calgary, will do it. Into the end zone for Elgard. He got tripped up. There was no penalty flag. Elgard got tangled up with both Charles Anthony and Chris Johnson, and he's looking to the official, but there was no penalty flag.
You talk about Elgard, he's number 2 on 1 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons behind Narcisse with 4. But a point you brought up a moment ago, Tommy Burgess. I want to send congratulations out to Tommy Burgess for last week in the game versus Baltimore at Taylor Field, surpassing the 30,000 career passing yards last week.
Warren Jones looking at 2nd and 10. Yes, Burgess has had a great CFL career with Ottawa, Saskatchewan, and Winnipeg. And Donald Narcisse now has a career-high 87 catches on the season. He made the catch in front of Douglas Kraft, but it looks as though he's going to be short of a first down.
Kraft was picked up 2 weeks ago after being cut loose by Indianapolis to shore up that corner position. They played a couple different players. They lost Smith. Well, Charles Anthony on the one corner, make that Carl Anthony, excuse me. who had an outstanding season last year, to a knee injury, and now that they brought in Kraft, a former teammate of his in Calgary, they feel they have the player to take him through the playoffs.
Well, the Roughriders take a look and they see that they're about 1.5 yards shy of a first down, so they're going to send out the field goal unit.
Watch for the shift by Saskatchewan on this play to possibly get Baltimore to jump off sides and pick up the first down.
Only in one game this year did Ridgway fail to kick a field goal. And he easily puts this one through as the Saskatchewan Roughriders jump into a 3-0 lead with 3:47 remaining in the opening quarter. Moments ago, Saskatchewan coach Ray Yawk was quite upset and animated in a conversation with umpire Bill Wright. And James, I would have to guess he was complaining about the lack of a flag and what he thought was an interference call on Ray Elgard in the end zone.
Well, I'm going to have to agree with Coach Yawk on the sideline, because when you get in critical situations like that, you hate for the officials to cost you a game, and he might have had a complaint.
Chris Wright on the kickoff return. He's spun around, and there's also a penalty flag on the play. An 8-yard run back.
Ray Elgard was the reason for that complaint by Coach Yawk. Watch at the end of this as Ray Elgard gets tripped right here. He had a clear path to the football, but he was tripped up in the end, and it cost him an opportunity for a touchdown. Chris Johnson was the player who ran up on him.
Holding.
Baltimore number 32 on the run back. 10-yard penalty.
First down.
Ray Elgard has only scored 2 touchdowns this season, and both came in the same game against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And this is a man who has 78 career touchdowns.
Well, it had been a long drought for him. He actually kissed the field at Taylor Field on his second touchdown because he had forgot on the first one. It had been so long since he had scored.
Yeah, he said, I simply forgot to do it the first time. Hit screen to Shannon Culver. He goes into traffic inside, and will only get a couple of yards.
Pass complete to
Shannon Culver is an interesting story. He dressed for the season opener in 1994, had difficulty learning his assignments. He quit, was then suspended and released. But he came back this year and asked for a tryout, and Coach Don Matthews was happy to comply. The injured Saskatchewan player is linebacker Dan Rashovich.
Dan Rastovich, a 12-year CFL veteran, been with a lot of teams, but he's found a home here in Saskatchewan. He's had an opportunity to start for the last 3 seasons and really be able to respond to that, having a fine season. And you hate to see Dan go down like this.
Well, he came from Montreal in the dispersal draft in 1987, James, and he got bent over backwards on the inside action, I believe.
Well, you'll see Rastovich right here, and we'll get a shot as it rolls through as he comes back in his pursuit on this slip screen underneath. He comes back with a good angle, but if we get a freeze right here, you'll see his leg is bent back underneath him right there, and that's where the problem comes from as Rastovich is bowled over. You'll get another look from a better angle from behind. He's down on his knees, and that pile just comes over, and he can't get that leg unfolded from underneath him.
Well, there are many times, and you've probably been in a similar situation, James, where you get into that traffic in the middle, and you just get bent over in awkward positions, and you can't do anything about it.
You feel so helpless, and sometimes as we see Rastovich going off the field under his own power, the initial shock of that has a tendency to be more than what the actual injury could be.
3:13 remaining in the opening quarter. Saskatchewan leads 3-0.
Now get a 28-point winter inspection, oil, lube, and filter, tire rotation, and a 4-liter jug of washer fluid, all for just $24.99, only at Canadian Tire.
Second and 8 for Baltimore. Tracy Ham with time. Now he's down back at the 5-yard line. Something that Coach Ray Yawk told us yesterday, James. He said, we did the things we wanted to do defensively, even though we lost last week 28-24. He said there were a couple of plays where we didn't control Tracy Ham the way we should, but other than that, we played pretty well, and he said, I think we're capable of doing it again today.
Well, the defensive line collapsed the pocket around Tracy Ham. They didn't have those vertical seams. Linebacker Robinson stayed outside. He didn't have that escape lane, and Bobby Jerson was able to come in and clean up for his 5th sack on the season.
Josh Miller punting from the end zone. Left-footed kicker, and 5 times this year he has punted for better than a 50-yard average. That was a big one. Taken by Terrell Elmer at the 50-yard line. Nowhere to go. Good downfield coverage. A late penalty flag. This could be thrown against Robert Davis as he put a late hit on Aaron Ruffin.
And that's the valuable weapon that Josh Miller is, kicking the ball down the field. The hang time, though, allowing the coverage. But as you said, Davis, with the foolish penalty once the ball was dead.
That was a 55-yard punt by Josh Miller, 2 yards on the return.
Major foul. Unnecessary roughness. Baltimore number 69. 15-yard penalty. First down, Saskatchewan.
You talk about the 55-yard punt, but the net was 53 yards, and that's instant field position for your defense when you can get the net and have a team pinned down. But Saskatchewan picks up an extra 15. Now the net is down to 35.
Well, that's something Don Matthews was talking about, how improved the kicking game for this team has been this year. And he said, I may be biased, but I think we have the best tandem in the league in Miller and Huerta.
Got my vote.
On the sidelines, Robert Mims with a couple of nifty moves to pick up additional yardage and a Saskatchewan first down.
Robert Mims was never thought about as a very elusive back, even in his days back in Winnipeg. More of a power-type back, something you don't commonly see in the CFL. But he's always had the good hands out of the backfield. That time able to pick up 12 yards on first down, concentrating on the football. We did a game last week where a lot of receivers looked away prior to making the catch. That time Mims made sure he had the reception.
And Mims had problems finding a job with Shreveport, Las Vegas, and BC. He had tryouts but couldn't get work. And here is Warren Jones, and Jones tried to go down, and Matt Goodwin made sure that he did go down at about the 27-yard line. 1:47 remaining in the opening quarter. 3-0 Saskatchewan leads. Goodwin, the Rookie of the Year in the CFL last year, and the award winners certainly have had a rough time this season, haven't they?
Don, I think this is the first time in the history of the CFL that all 5 award winners have actually missed games in the following season.
2nd and 6. Pass is complete for a first down to Dan Farthing. He takes it out of bounds down to the 16-yard line. Dan Farthing out of the University of Saskatchewan. And Farthing is running out of a slot back position alongside Ray Elgard. He just wishes he could post the same numbers as Ray Elgard.
But he's that consistent, sure-handed receiver. He's not the Ray Elgard type, but you can count on Dan Farthing picking you up that tough 7 to 8 yard range pass. He's not going to be a game breaker, but sure-handed.
His 22nd reception of the season. Saskatchewan 1st and 10. Jones steps up, throws complete to Farthing again, and he's got another first down. And you talked about the sure-handed receiver inside, another example.
Well, that ball was actually behind Farthing a bit, and he had to slow down and wait on it. But that's understanding where you are on the field, not trying to outrun the pass. Farthing waits on it, makes the reception, keeps the drive marching for Saskatchewan.
So the Riders are 1st and goal from the Baltimore 5-yard line. Many people thought that the Saskatchewan Roughriders really didn't have much of a chance with their final games in the schedule. Here's Donald Narcisse, touchdown. 2 with Baltimore, 2 with Calgary, and a final game with BC. But right now they are leading Baltimore in this rematch by a score of 9-0 after losing by 4 points last Sunday at Taylor Field. And the Saskatchewan team has looked sharp offensively.
Well, to say that Saskatchewan didn't have a chance in this game, all you had to do was really look at last week's game. Saskatchewan led that game up into 3 minutes and 24 seconds to go until surrendering the lead to Tracy Ham on that 45-yard touchdown scamper. But Donald Narcisse running into traffic, making an excellent reception. This is the team that came to play for their playoff life this afternoon.
David Ridgway adds the point after, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders on the final play of the opening quarter have jumped into a 10-0 lead. The Riders in a battle with Winnipeg for the final playoff berth in the Northern Division. Well, for a man whose mother really didn't want him to play football, Donald Narcisse has carved quite a career in the CFL.
He's carved quite a niche in the record books in the CFL also. He's going to reach his 7th consecutive 1,000-yard season today, but also surpass his career receptions in a single season and set a new high this afternoon also.
In the last 7 games, Donald Narcisse has really held a hot hand. 52 receptions, and he has 4 more today. 88 for the year. Right on the kickoff return, and the Riders corral him at the 30-yard line. The first man downfield was Dale Joseph, limiting the return to 13 yards.
Coach, that's for you.
Donald Narcisse sending words back home, but the key is when you make the reception, is all that has to happen is the ball breaks the plane. Narcisse will come in from the bottom of your frame. Just he makes a reception. We get a freeze once he lands. Good one is here inside the end zone. All he has to do is break that plane to get the touchdown, and the good one is inside the end zone when he makes the hit. Touchdown, Narcisse.
Saskatchewan leading by a score of 10-0 as Donald Narcisse puts it into the end zone. And now Tracy Ham scrimmages 1st and 10 from the 30-yard line. Over the middle, intended for Culver, incomplete. He was being defended by Benson Donaldson, and the throw was just a little high. 2 fumbles and recoveries by Saskatchewan really hurt Baltimore in the opening quarter. One, they appeared to be driving for a touchdown when they fumbled. Tracy Ham lost the handle, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders were able to march downfield and kick a field goal.
Turnovers have always been a telling story in a football game, and Saskatchewan with the +2 and the 10 points on the scoreboard.
2nd and 10. Ham is under some pressure. Now he comes out of the pocket, throws deep. Too far for Cates. Actually, Cates had to hold up initially, and then Ham overthrew him as Cates shifted gears.
Hams thought that Cates would continue running, and when he broke out of his stride, Tracy had already thrown the ball, and the ball went out of his outreach fingers. You'll get just the last bit of that play right here. Cates looking back over his shoulders. If he had been in full stride, it would have been 6. He might have ran all the way to Washington.
Randall and Ruffin are back for this 3rd down punt. Randall will take it at the 25. Randall spins away from one tackle. Now there's a flag as he brings it back to the 40-yard line. Peter Tuipulotu was the man who made the tackle, limiting the return of Brian Randall to 15 yards.
Saskatchewan really has to feel good about the score. Last week at Taylor Field, they were trailing 7-3 at the end of the first quarter. They have a 10-zip lead here in Baltimore. So their game plan has been working defensively. They've been able to keep Mike Pringle contained, not allow him to break loose. Tracy Ham has had marginal success also.
There were 2 penalty flags. Let's listen to Bud Steen.
Illegal block on the return. Saskatchewan number 35. Major foul, unnecessary roughness, dead ball foul. Baltimore number 4. Net the penalties, 5 yards. 1st down, Saskatchewan.
Well, Saskatchewan gains 5 as a result of the penalties. Alvin Walton called for the dead ball foul, the holding infraction against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And Don Matthews won't be at all happy with the way things have transpired so far in the football game. Some needless penalties by his team, 2 of them after the whistle, and of course the 2 fumbles. From the shotgun, 1st and 10. Albert Turner on the receiving end, and he is wrapped up immediately by Charles Anthony after a gain of about 3 yards.
Don Matthews is one of those coaches who really doesn't care much for penalties, and he doesn't mind letting his players know when they come to the sideline. They're going to get an earful because he feels with the great athletes he has that they should be able to hustle and get in proper position.
They credit Turner with a gain of 4. It's 2nd and 6. The ball is at the Saskatchewan 47-yard line. Again, Warren Jones operates from the shotgun. Alfred Payton appeared to move prematurely. The pass to Dan Farthing. He will be short of a 1st down. But I think this is going to be an offside call against Baltimore.
Well, Alfred has gotten his 1st sack this game in the past 3. Little antsy wanting to pick up another one. Got in that neutral zone and was caught.
Baltimore number 56. 2-second out repeat.
Alfred Payton played college football at Grambling, and Alfred Payton was talking yesterday about his coach at Grambling, Eddie Robinson, who later today will be going for his 400th victory. On the 2nd and 1 play, Robert Mims is stopped right at the line of scrimmage by Matt Goodwin. Yeah, Eddie Robinson at Grambling, only 5 losing seasons, and Alfred Payton was saying that I was on one of those teams.
Yeah, he said it was quite an embarrassment to be on one of those losing seasons because the alumni were sending them letters of how disappointed they were in the play and the pride that has been at Grambling University over the years under Coach Eddie Robinson. As you said, searching for his 400th victory this afternoon, and Alfred having an opportunity to go there. He said that was one of the greatest moments in his life, having an opportunity, because Coach Robinson, not only was he a coach, but he was an active coach. He would be down on the field, a receiver wouldn't run a proper route. He would say, no, son, let me show you how to run it. At 70+ years of age, would go out and actually run the pass route for the receiver, say, now that's how I'd like to have it done.
Well, I guess Alfred got the message about the losing season in '87, because for the next 2 years he was the Grambling MVP. Third down gamble, and driving straight ahead, Warren Jones should have the first down. He had to get up to about the 54, and he appears to have achieved that goal with 12:13 remaining in the second quarter. Saskatchewan leading by a score of 10-0.
What Saskatchewan is doing is controlling the clock. They're taking their time as they're marching down the field. They're not pressing. You really haven't seen the big plays in their arsenal. They're nickeling and diming down the field, and they're keeping this Baltimore offense off of the field, because when you keep Tracy Ham on the bench, that's the best defense that you can have.
And the Roughriders just get it. And it will be 1st and 10 for Saskatchewan. Coach Matthews was saying that he really didn't know a lot about Tom Burgess going into Saskatchewan last week. They thought that Warren Jones would be the quarterback last week, but because of an injury, Jones was unable to play. Someone stepped on his heel at practice. Jones is the quarterback this afternoon, and Matthews said he'll give us a little different look. His pass complete to Bruce Boyko, and that takes the ball to the 51. Charles Anthony made the tackle. James, a couple of weeks ago, Coach Ray Yark was talking about Boyko, and he was saying he may be the most underrated player on our team.
Well, he's a consistent player, and a lot of times you have a tendency to overlook players that are consistent because they do the same thing every week and they do it at the same pace. He's not a highlight player, and those are the type of players that you can win with a Boyko, because he's going to go out and do that dirty work and not expect the headlines the following day.
2nd and 4 as Narcisse lines up wide to the right. The handoff to Mims, and a pretty good hole as Mims fights his way to the 45 of Baltimore. You know, when you look back at the career of Robert Mims, he had 2,000-yard-plus seasons for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. In 1990, he ran for 1,341 yards. In 1991, 1,769 yards, the leading rusher in the CFL both those seasons.
Getting kind of tough up the middle. Mikowski in his first game starting, doing a good job. Making his second game starting, doing a fine job inside on Maxey.
Jones throws deep for Narcisse, and he makes the catch down at the 25-yard line. What a reception by Donald Narcisse as he takes the ball to the 25.
Charles Anthony on the coverage for the Stallions.
Donald Narcisse now about 5 yards shy of a 1,000-yard season, and this would be, he now has 1,001, we're informed, a 7th consecutive 1,000-yard season for Donald Narcisse.
And you can't say enough about what Donald Narcisse has done today, this year, throughout his career.
Fake inside to Mims. Pass along the sidelines for Narcisse. And the way Narcisse is going this afternoon, he may hit 100 catches.
What's so amazing about Donald Narcisse, he is not the fleetest of receivers, but the pass routes that he run are so precision is that defensive backs really cannot gauge him. Watch as he squares this off. You really don't know where he's going. Irv Smith is still in his back pedal, Lester Smith as it is, and he has to come back, but Narcisse has already made the reception.
And now Donald Narcisse has tied Tony Gabriel for the number 5 position on the all-time list, 614 career receptions. Robert Mims driving inside looking for the first down, and he should have it as he fights his way down close to the 15-yard line, perhaps even getting inside the 15. Gravely and Goodwin made the tackle.
This is a situation that Baltimore's defense is not accustomed to being in. It's very hot here in Baltimore this afternoon, but they've been on the field for about 5 minutes on this drive as Saskatchewan has just marched down the field. And this offensive line for Saskatchewan is just controlling them. Being led by Mike Anderson at center, they're doing a good job against this Baltimore defensive front.
You think the defensive players wearing green and white are happy to be sitting on the bench watching what's going on?
Having a nice cold drink of water.
First and 10. Mims gets down to the 10-yard line, and or third, I should say, and 1, and Mims gets down to the 10-yard line. And now it will be first. And will it be first and goal? No, they can still get a first down as the ball is just outside the 10-yard line.
You know, you talked about Alan Boyko earlier. Watch as he comes off tackle and gets the block right here on Gravely. That is the key to the run. And you talked about him not being make that Bruce Boyko, the big star player, but he gets the job done for the running backs following him.
First and 10 from just outside the 10. And Jones is going to throw this one away.
Said Allen, that's his brother in Winnipeg.
There's a penalty flag in the end zone. Albert Turner was covered.
Jones passing complete, intended for Albert Turner.
And we'll wait for referee Steen to indicate what the penalty call was. This may have been an interference call in the end zone.
Illegal contact on an eligible receiver. Baltimore number 21. It's a restricted penalty. And it's first down, Saskatchewan.
Irvin Smith, the corner, was guilty of the interference call. That takes the ball to the 5-yard line. Some believe that Smith is the best cover man in the CFL.
Well, he hadn't had much work coming in until Doug Kraft was brought into the lineup. Since Kraft has been added, they've started throwing at Smith. And Donald Narcisse has been working on Smith this afternoon, and he picked up that last penalty.
First and goal now for Saskatchewan from the 5-yard line. Operating out of the shotgun. Jones steps up. Now looks into the end zone, and standing all by himself is Donald Narcisse. His second touchdown of the ball game. Donald Narcisse got the defensive back completely turned around. And James, I think even you or I could have made that catch.
Well, let's go with I and leave you out of that, okay? Because I don't know if you can get that deep. We have to bring some CPR out possibly. But Smith actually came up when he saw Jones breaking the pocket and left Narcisse all alone. You can't do that. And this is the threat that a Warren Jones gives you. Looks like he's going to run. He has the ball tucked, pulls it down, and Smith comes up. Narcisse plants on the baseline there. Touchdown, Saskatchewan, 16-0 lead.
Donald Narcisse now with 7 touchdowns on the season. And the Saskatchewan Roughriders have looked as sharp offensively in this first half as I've seen them at any time this year. David Ridgway adds the point after. A 2-touchdown performance by Donald Narcisse as he achieves another milestone, a 7th consecutive 1,000-yard season. 8-yard drive for a 17-0 Saskatchewan Roughrider lead. And the Baltimore Stallions, who were hoping to clinch first place in the Southern Division with a win this afternoon, are now up against it. Chris Wright on the return. Wright trying to go wide, and good downfield coverage by the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Benson Donaldson made the tackle. 91 receptions now on the season for Donald Narcisse, a career high. Joey Walters with 102 in 1982, Craig Ellis 102 in 85, and Ray Elgard with 94 in 1990, the only Rough Riders who have caught more.
What's so amazing about Craig Ellis, he did it from the running back position. Joe Powell was his quarterback, the offensive coordinator for Edmonton.
And then Craig Ellis managed to have a 100 reception season after he returned to the CFL with the Edmonton Eskimos. LeBrant Robinson in there to make the tackle on Mike Pringle. Tui Pelotu, who alternates at the fullback position with Robert Drummond, a little slow in getting up, and he'll head off to the bench, and Drummond will come into the ball game.
Here's the touchdown that we saw with Narcisse. As Irvin Smith releases Narcisse when Jones breaks contain, Narcisse just sets down, gives his quarterback a target. Touchdown was the result.
Second down play with Pringle trying to go wide. Good pursuit by the Roughriders. He'll be close to a first down, getting up in the vicinity of the 35-yard line. LeBrant Robinson came over along with Getz and Randall. But I think something that Coach Yock will be happy about this afternoon is the team pursuit, the way they've been going after the ball carrier and gang tackling.
That's what you've seen. You've seen 5 and 6 white jerseys every time Mike Pringle has touched the football, and that's the only way that you can have success defensively. Jim Daly spoke about he wanted an east and west runner with Mike Pringle this afternoon, not let him get north and south and get those shoulders squared up, because that's where he really causes problems for you.
Jim Daly, the defensive coordinator for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and Baltimore is gambling on the third down play, and it looks as though they may have it, but they're calling for a measurement.
They're going to get it because the sticks were on this side of the field and the official was looking at the far side, and there's about a yard's difference on those two marks.
Saskatchewan, after 4 first downs by Baltimore on the opening drive, 13 consecutive first downs, and the time of possession is getting close to 3-1.
Well, I think what took the steam out of Baltimore's sails was when Tracy Ham fumbled the ball down inside the 5-yard line. As you recall, Rogers came in and stripped him of the ball, and Saskatchewan recovered and was able to march down the field, eat up the clock. And then when Pringle fumbled, they were able to punch it in and get points out of it. And Baltimore hasn't recovered offensively yet.
The third down gamble pays off. It's 1st and 10 Baltimore. They are at their own 36-yard line. Here comes Rogers after Ham, and down he goes. LeBrant Robinson was the second man in, and Tracy Ham is dropped for a loss. They only got to him 3 times last week. But Gary Rogers came off the corner untouched.
Well, that's the key. You have to blitz. You have to change up your defensive scheme. Robinson and Pordanich, as Robinson was able to clean up, but Gary Rogers initiated the attack on Tracy Ham. He's at the bottom of your screen. He'll come untouched, but Robinson, hustling, was able to knock Ham off stride for the sack.
It was Gary Rogers coming from the other side, however, who created the initial difficulties for Tracy Ham. Now he's back in the shotgun. Penalty flag on the play. Ham going deep over the middle, intercepted by Ulmer. He was looking for Armstrong, and Ulmer did a good job in defending against him at the midfield stripe. Shar Pordanich was involved with Tim Edwards, and there was a penalty flag. We'll sort it out when we return. He has the Roughriders into a 2nd and 3 situation. Handoff to Mims, and Mims fought his way down to the 45-yard line, stopped there by Grant Carter. It appeared as though Mims was a little unsure as to which way to go, a little stutter step as he appeared to be searching for a hole.
Well, that time he didn't have a clear running lane. As you see him down blocking, everyone's going one direction, trying to get Mims to come back against the flow, but Baltimore didn't have many takers on him and was able to stop him short.
So David Ridgway will come into the ball game, the number 2. No, it's going to be the punter, Brent Mattich, coming in. I thought they might attempt a Ridgway field goal here, but it's going to be Mattich punting instead, standing at his own 50-yard line.
Well, the footing is not that sure, and with the humidity, the ball would be heavy air for the ball to travel through, so it would possibly come up short. Dave doesn't have the leg he had 5 years ago.
He might not agree with you on that, James.
Oh, I stood next to him on the field. Looked like he lost weight.
The punt is blocked. Walton got to it. Now Mattich picks it up. Mattich gets it again, and this time he kicks it away. Chris Wright chases back after it. Picks it up at the 20-yard line. Penalty flag in the play. When was the last time you saw two punts on the same play? Wright manages to stay in bounds. He may go all the way. A 90-yard run back by Chris Wright after the punt was initially blocked by Alvin Walton, picked up and kicked again by Matic. The penalty call against Saskatchewan, so the 90-yard punt return on a no-yards call will stand.
Great individual effort by Chris Wright. Punt blocked twice, but he still picked up the ball and brought it back to the wall.
Wright made an immediate impression on the coaching staff with Baltimore at training camp. They really didn't think he was going to make the team when he first arrived because the man he had to beat out of a job was Mike Pringle. Coach Matthews was saying at training camp he had the pinball Clemens moves that we really liked. And he was also faster than the pinball. And the Saskatchewan Roughriders will probably verify that Chris Wright does have tremendous speed as he sidestepped his way down the sidelines for a 90-yard punt return touchdown. Now, statistically, does Brent Matic get credited for two punts?
He's going to have to get credited, one with minus yardage and one with plus yardage. But Alvin Walton with a great effort as he just fights through Rasevich, gets the block, but Matic having the alertness to go back and pick up the ball and retrack himself and kick it once again. But what happens is you have the defenders go down and get out of their lanes. It often happens when you have a block kick or a short kick that players will often get a little lapse. And that time Saskatchewan took their minds off their job. Chris Wright picked up the ball, got back to the wall right, and he was off to the races.
Chris Wright, number 3 in all-purpose yards in the CFL behind Corey Philpott and teammate Mike Pringle. He adds 90 yards to his total.
More often than not, you'll see the big play on special teams when you have the bad kick. And you saw the excellent blocking by Baltimore on the return to allow Wright to get into the end zone for that touchdown return.
Wright now with better than 1,100 punt return yards on the season. And the Baltimore Stallions are on the board with 3:41 remaining in the first half here at Memorial Stadium. Aaron Ruffin takes the ball at the 10-yard line. Goodwin is after him, got a piece of him, and then Goodwin got some help, and Ruffin goes down at the 25-yard line. 15 yards on the return. Matt Goodwin, from the first game he played last year in his rookie season, has been a terror for Baltimore on special teams.
He has been a terror. He's an outstanding player last year, rookie of the year in the CFL, but right now momentum has changed jerseys. It's wearing blue. You could see the different spark that Baltimore had in coming down and covering that kick. Now Warren Jones has to stay this off and pick up at least 2 first downs.
17-7, Saskatchewan leads. The Baltimore fans hoping with that punt return touchdown the momentum will change, but Donald Narcisse gets his hands on the ball and takes it up to about the 38-yard line, tackled there by Charles Anthony, about a yard short of a first down.
You spoke about Narcisse's mother saying that he was too small to play football, but he accredits most of his football ability to his college coach, Lionel Taylor, who believed in him and brought him in at Texas Southern and made him the player that he is today. And Donald Narcisse is having an outstanding afternoon in Baltimore.
At Memorial Stadium, Saskatchewan leading 17-7. Coming up on the BF Goodrich TA halftime report, the brothers Hendrickson, 2 large men, once wild, but getting more mellow as they reach their mid-20s, just like Don and James did. This is not to say they're elder statesmen yet, but they're still characters, and we'll look into the relationship of Scott, who plays for Saskatchewan, and Craig, who's in Edmonton after a few years in Saskatchewan. That's at halftime, Don.
And Scott Hendrickson has made a couple of key blocks this afternoon, springing Robert Mims loose. That time they didn't spring Mims loose, but he may have the first down. Alfred Payton came in to make the tackle, but Mims had to get up to the 35-yard line.
Go ahead, take it in.
And they're going to call for a measurement here. Jones has completed 15 of 18 pass attempts so far in the football game for Saskatchewan, including 12 in a row. And they are just a little shy of a first down with 2:46 remaining in the first half. It looks as though Ray Yock is opting to leave the offensive unit out there.
Well, that's a long yard that they have to pick up, and Baltimore is a tough defense to run on. Alfred Payton made that last tackle. Everyone knows of Alfred as being a great sacker, a pursuer of quarterbacks, but he's a very solid, well-rounded defensive end because he came into this game and he's already picked up his 30th tackle on the season.
A key third down play for Saskatchewan. Jones driving straight ahead, and it appears he has crossed the 35-yard line. The 90-yard punt return touchdown by Chris Wright, his third of the season. He opened the year with punt return touchdowns in his first two games against the BC Lions and San Antonio, but that's his longest, 90 yards.
Baltimore has always thought of Wright as instant field position. That time he didn't give him a chance. He just took it in himself. He wanted to be on the highlight reel, but when you have a valuable weapon like that, you have to take every opportunity to get the ball in his hands, and Chris Wright has delivered this year for the Stallions.
And that's why Don Matthews was talking about the kicking game being improved. He was talking about not only Josh Miller and Carlos Huerta, but the return game with Chris Wright.
Well, also Carlos Huerta, when he kicked that last extra point, became the Stallions' all-time single-season scoring leader. He came in with 164. Now he has 165, and he broke last year's mark by Igwe.
2:11 remaining, and here's the long throw intended for Turner. Incomplete. Kraft was defending against him. Jones came into the game with some designs in trying to test Douglas Kraft on the corner to find out whether or not he would cope with the speed of Turner and Narcisse.
Douglas Kraft has always been known as a very physical defensive back, likes to play bump and run. You can see Turner and Kraft boxing with each other basically as they were going down the field throwing blows, but Kraft ran stride for stride with Turner, and now Saskatchewan has a 2nd and 10.
After 12 completions in a row, the first miss by Warren Jones. 2nd and 10 from his own 30, or from the 35. This is intercepted, picked off by Courtney Griffin. Bruce Boyko makes the tackle. So with 2:09 remaining in the first half, the Stallions create a turnover of their own after giving the ball away 3 times earlier on 2 fumbles and an interception.
Bad read by Jones, great jump by Griffin, but an offense with Saskatchewan here that had played such a great first half up until this point now seems to be self-destructive.
The ball at the 45 of Saskatchewan. Jones manages to throw it away, and apparently there was a receiver in the area, Shannon Culver. It looked initially as though Bud Steen was going to throw a flag for intentionally grounding. He had the flag out of his pocket, but then spotted Culver.
Edwards came up the middle, just broke through cleanly, got a hold of Tracy Ham, but Tracy saw Culver and was able to get it away, and Bud Steen put the flag back, and that was a good call by the official.
2nd and 10. Deep for Chris Armstrong. Can't catch up with it. That's twice that Tracy Ham has attempted to go deep, once to Cates, and this time to Chris Armstrong, both plays in this 2nd quarter.
The pressure once again by Saskatchewan's defense. Ron Getz, the middle linebacker, blitzing on the play along with the free safety, Van Bellingham, putting the pressure on Ham. Jim Daly once again back-to-back weeks with an excellent defensive scheme for Baltimore's offense.
This will be a 52-yard field goal attempt by Carlos Huerta.
This would equal his longest on the season of 52.
He's made 3 of 4 this year from outside the 50-yard line. This kick is wide. Brought out of the end zone by Ulmer. Ulmer gets a couple of blocks, now finds a hole, and he brings brings it all the way back to the 42. 1:33 remaining in the first half.
Now get a 28.
Well, Saskatchewan survived the Warren Jones interception as the 45-yard field goal attempt, or the 45-yard run back, gives the Riders good field position at the 42-yard line. The 52-yard field goal attempt sailing wide. I said that Huerta had only missed once in 4 tries from outside the 50-yard line. That was up at Iverwin Stadium in Hamilton on the Labor Day weekend when he actually slipped in attempting to plant on a field goal attempt.
Had all that tape up under his shoe at that point, and when he came in on that stride, he lost his footing. Tim Edwards is the defensive tackle that is down for Saskatchewan, who put that pressure on Tracy Ham in that last series and forced him to get rid of the ball quicker than what he wanted. This defensive unit for Saskatchewan has started to round out. They had a lot of positions changing early in the year. They were trying to find the right combination of players, but now they feel very comfortable with the unit that they have, and they've had an outstanding first half here today.
People were asking Coach Ray Yark about Warren Jones starting this game after Tom Burgess had a strong game at Taylor Field on Sunday, and he said, "I've never felt that a quarterback should lose a starting assignment because of an injury, and in practice and getting ready for last Sunday's game, a teammate stepped on Warren Jones' heel, and that is the reason he couldn't start last Sunday, but he's healthy this week and playing very well this afternoon."
He had the strained Achilles, and I think that's a philosophy with most coaches, is that why let a player lose his starting assignment over something that he can't control? And Tommy Burgess, who did a great job in coming in last week at Taylor Field, knew the position that he was in, and when you're a team player such as Tommy Burgess, you don't mind relinquishing the #1 job back to the #1 quarterback.
Burgess, number 6 on the all-time touchdown pass list with 188. An incomplete pass intended over the middle for Ray Elgard.
Broken up by
O.J. Brigance, the player who broke it up. Ray Elgard, nicknamed Harley by his teammates.
Harles, this time Harles couldn't haul this one in as the ball hit him in the hands, but the pressure is getting to Jones, and that's what Baltimore will do. They will come at you relentlessly, but Jones has been able to elude it for the most part here in the half.
2nd and 10, the ball is at the 42. 1:36 the time remaining in the first half. Saskatchewan leading by a score of 17-7. 4 receivers to the left. Jones takes off to the right side. And something that Jones will do more often than Tom Burgess is run with the football.
Well, that's what you have with a Jones, is you have that big mobile quarterback. It puts a lot of pressure on the defense. You spoke about earlier in the opening about the 4 receivers to one side. He was hoping that he could get Baltimore to roll to the field, but when you get a player to stay at home like Peyton did on that last play, makes it very difficult. Saskatchewan is going to be forced to punt.
And Matic is, I'm sure, hoping he only has to punt once this time.
Well, he's making sure. And Willie Hinchcliffe was late coming onto the field, and that could have caused a problem, but Matic waited on him.
Wright chasing down the punt by Matic. Penalty flag, and this almost certainly will be a no-yards call against Saskatchewan. There were at least 3 inside the 5-yard area after a 38-yard kick.
I think that's one they'll accept after taking it back 90 yards on that last one. Give him the no yards, stop him, and give him the 5-yard penalty.
Brooks Finlay appeared to be one of those inside the 5-yard area.
No yards. Saskatchewan number 87. 5-yard, no-yard penalty. First down.
The coach's son. Now, how do you discipline your own son for getting a penalty?
Joey Yark is the player that the officials called.
You'll see him at the right of your screen as Joey is trying to get down and cover, and he just went into that 5-yard rule. But hey, when you got a guy that can break it like Wright, just make the tackle.
Brooks Finlay was also down there, and he made the tackle. Little swing pass coming out of the backfield. Pringle, the ball carrier, and he is taken out of bounds up near the 39-yard line by the corner, Vincent Donaldson.
I tell you, the key of that play was Mike Pringle setting up a blocks for Cates to come in and make his wide receiver. You'll see it as he comes in. Cates comes back on a peel back block on Joseph. Excellent job of setting him up by Mike Pringle. That's what good running backs do with great vision. They see the entire field.
Well, for the past 2 years, Pringle has certainly seen the entire field in Baltimore, and he is hopeful this year of breaking 2,000 yards. But he has some work to do if he hopes to get there, and Ron Getz is making sure he doesn't even pick up a first down on this second and about 2 play. Getz had a strong game last Sunday at Taylor Field. He made 6 tackles for the Riders.
Well, last year, Ron was Saskatchewan's nominee for outstanding defensive player in the league. Scraped to the outside, came up. That's what you do when your defensive lineman will keep the offensive lineman off of you. It allows you to scrape and run freely through holes and make tackles such as Getz did.
Josh Miller, 55-yard average in kicking the ball this afternoon. I talked earlier about the 5 games where he has punted for better than a 50-yard average this year. He had a 56.7-yard average against Shreveport on September 15th. The Saskatchewan Roughriders called a timeout with 1:09 remaining in the first half. Another big kick by Miller. Ruffin goes back to his 11-yard line. And again, good downfield coverage by Baltimore. Greg Tucker was the first man downfield. That was a 60-yard punt by Miller, 9 yards on the return. Scott Hendrickson, who along with brother Craig will be featured at halftime. Now looking to open up some holes or protect quarterback Warren Jones for the final minute of this football game in the first half.
Which is the smaller of those two brothers? I know he has the nickname of Pooch, and everyone teases him. Is that because he's the smallest?
I'm not sure which of the two is the smaller.
Wouldn't invite either one over for dinner, though.
Scott is 6'3", 285 pounds. Robert Mims, the ball carrier, with a gain of close to 5 up to the 25, stopped there by middle linebacker O.J. Brigance. The development of Greg Carter as a defensive end enabled Baltimore this year to shift O.J. Brigance into the middle linebacking position.
Well, they felt that that was a natural position for him because of his mobility, and he could roam from sideline to sideline. And Carter, in his first full season of starting out at the University of Pacific, has really rounded out. He added 15 pounds in the offseason, which has really helped him anchor that defensive end position.
41 seconds remaining in the first half with the clock running. Hand off to Mims, and Mims is reaching up to the 30-yard line, hoping to get a first down, brought down by Matt Goodwin. It looks as though he's going to be short.
You know, you talked about the Hendrickson brothers, and you look at the backgrounds that both of them have and aspirations that they both have for leaving football. And Greg is looking at the ministry once he leaves the game. And we saw last week that he got into a little shouting match with his head coach in Edmonton on the sideline.
I don't think he was shouting. I think he was mainly listening.
Oh, he was listening. Well, he had gotten a penalty for a rough play, and Coach Lancaster had taken him out of the game. And when you come out of the game as a starter, you never lose your position on special teams, and he missed going out on an extra point.
Third down gamble, the handoff in the backfield, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders appear to have it. It looked for a moment as though they were going to stack it up right at the line of scrimmage, but Robert Mims was able to struggle through with 7 seconds remaining in the first half. You ask which of the Hendrickson brothers was bigger? Craig gets it. He's an inch taller and 5 pounds heavier.
All right, that's before or after Mims. You know, an outstanding group of players, though. Their father played in Saskatchewan, and that's a fine Henderson tradition that they've had. Both brothers were able to play here together in Saskatchewan before Craig moved on to Edmonton.
This will be the final play of the half, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders, surprisingly, are heading to the dressing room with a 10-point lead. Don Matthews saw his team fumbled the football in what appeared to be an opening drive, and then Ray York's club came back to score 17 unanswered points.
Well, Jim Daly, you have to take your hat off to Jim Daly and his defensive game plan of defending Baltimore this afternoon. They really haven't given Ham or Pringle the opportunity for the big play.
So the Saskatchewan Roughriders battling with Winnipeg for the 5th and final playoff berth in the Northern Division head to the dressing room with a 10-point lead, leading by a score of 17-7. Saskatchewan with a 5-9 record, Winnipeg at 5-10. Now let's join Scott.
All right, Dom, we're standing by now to get a few words from Saskatchewan's Bobby Jurison. Bobby had this first question all planned. It was about the contain on Pringle and Ham, but your offense wouldn't let him on the field for much of the first half.
Well, I tell you what, Tracy Ham and Pringle are great athletes. It's going to take a team effort to keep them guys contained.
Bobby, this scramble for a playoff position, I'm sure, is a position the Riders would prefer not to be in, but how's your team handling the pressure, do you think?
Well, last week, we kind of let one get away against Baltimore, but this week we're going to try to put this one in the bag and hopefully come up with a win and put some heat on Winnipeg.
All right, Bobby, I thank you for your time. Good luck in the second half.
All right, thanks, Scott.
Bobby Jurison, Saskatchewan Roughriders lead Baltimore by 10 at halftime. Stand by now for the B.F. Goodrich TA halftime report live from Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. 30 minutes of football complete here in Baltimore, and the Green Riders lead. Who'd have figured that? Well, we could say the Hendrickson brothers were model children growing up in Brandon, but that would be revisionist history. Scott, by his own admission, was trouble from the get-go. Craig may have looked good by comparison, but he was also a handful. Their acts are solidly together now, though. In fact, they were together, I should say, as teammates with Saskatchewan for a couple of years until Craig joined Edmonton as a free agent, but their relationship has not suffered.
My brother and I have always been tight. Growing up, we were always best of friends, always through college. And really, we're just two guys that can, if we have a problem, we can share it with each other and expect an honest, straightforward answer from the other. He's a great guy. He's an honest guy, sincere, straightforward, and there's no backstabbing going on. He'll let you know what he feels.
Football is just an all-out aggressive, just, proving your manhood kind of sport, especially on the line, the O-line, D-line. I mean, it's just a battle, and that's usually where the game is won. And when you get a chance to do that against your brother, that just makes it even more special. You get the bragging rights already for whether you win the game or not, and then if you can embarrass them out there, well, that just makes it all that much more exciting.
We've always wanted to line up against each other, a male ego thing or something, but we always wanted to do it, and it wouldn't be in too much of competition. It would just be out there having fun. I
said, hey, man, there's nothing more I'd like more than to just line up against you and absolutely crush you into the ground on short yardage. So it would certainly be fun, but I don't count on it happening anytime soon. We try to watch each other's games all the time and critique each other, and we let each other know when we see each other get beat badly or run over, but we also try to let each other know when we think that they've done well and played well. So we try to encourage each other, and I think it's really good. I think we get along as well or better than any brother combination.
We just have fun knowing that we're on this field at the same time as each other, and we're competing at the pro level against each other, and that's something that not too many people can get out of life.
Our dream, I think both of us, is probably to try to get back to play with each other again, whether it be here or somewhere else. It's tough to say, but I think that we certainly would like to finish our careers playing together again, and if we can, right beside each other.
Well, the Hendricksons have CFL bloodlines. Their father, Lefty, about a quarter of his son's combined weight, played with BC in the late 60s, early 70s, looked nothing like his boy Scott, who toils in the trenches. Nice work by Scott there against O.J. Bragant's in the first half of this game, and his Riders lead heading for the second half. In Baltimore, there's the scene at Mount Vernon Square in the city. They were expecting a crowd in excess of 35,000 here today. They say they've already sold more than that for the Grey Cup rematch with BC here in 2 weeks. Later today, Hamilton's at Shreveport. Ticats have lost 3 in a row to fall to 7-7. Saskatchewan and Winnipeg aren't that far behind, so the Cats have to win. Tomorrow, Ottawa's at Memphis. Mad Dogs scrambling for the final playoff spot in the South, so they have to win, and we'll have the telecast. And then we'll serve up a doubleheader on Thanksgiving Monday. We'll start with Calgary at BC. Lions have won 1 of their last 5, so guess what? They've got to win if they're to maintain any hope of overtaking Edmonton for second. We'll complete the twin bill with Winnipeg at Toronto. There are must-win games all over the place in Week 15 in the CFL, including here in Baltimore if you're the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And James and Don, we had speculated at the start of this game that the Riders might not have enough left after their all-out effort against Baltimore last week. I think we've got the answer in the first half of this game.
Well, there were people who thought that the Roughriders had really shot their bolt last week at home against the Stallions. But Ray Yawk really didn't agree. And talking to him yesterday, he said, I think we'll have a lot left. And in the first half, they certainly did. After making that initial stand, recovering the fumble, they took control of the game offensively. And James, Donald Narcisse scored 2 big touchdowns.
It's what you call rider pride, Don. And Donald Narcisse had the big first half, capturing a couple of records along the way, getting his initial first down of the game on a 5-yard pass right at the goal line. Goodwin makes the hit, but all you have to do is break the plane. But Saskatchewan was able to get the ball back and march back downfield once again. The mobility of a Jones made Smith let Narcisse get away in the back of the end zone, and as he sat down, Jones threw a strike to him, but Baltimore was not to be outdone as Chris Wright on a block punt by Maddich had to go and retrack himself, pick the punt back up and kick it again, but Wright with the alertness to be able to run downfield 90 yards for the touchdown to get Baltimore on the scoreboard.
Pretty alert play by Maddich to recover the ball and kick it away, but then Chris Wright with the speed scores his 3rd touchdown of the season, his longest punt return of the year, a 90-yard gallop down the sidelines. He got a couple of key blocks, and then he was on his way and was not about to be caught.
What a great story Don Narcisse is for Saskatchewan. Once the CFL's best-kept secret, but he's far more than that now. That's the BF Goodrich TA halftime report. Stand by now for the second half with Saskatchewan in front by 10.
The Saskatchewan Roughriders take a 17-7 lead into the second half. The Roughriders with 3 games remaining after today. Next weekend, they're at home to the Calgary Stampeders. Then they play in Calgary on the 22nd, wind up the season in British Columbia on the 28th, and they're hoping to have close to 50,000 people in attendance for next Saturday's game against Calgary. The kickoff grabbed by Tui Pelotu at the 36-yard line, a 1-yard run back after the 40-yard kickoff. The teams fighting for the final playoff berths, or berth, I guess you could say. Saskatchewan facing opponents with a combined record of 35-7. They have 2 with Calgary, 1 against BC. Winnipeg, 2 games with Toronto, 1 against Ottawa, and the 1-loss records of those 2 teams add up to 6-36. A distinct difference. Even more so when you add in Baltimore. Here's Drummond looking for the pass. There's a penalty flag. There was also a penalty flag back at the line of scrimmage. Gary Rogers had gone deep with Robert Drummond, and he showed some pretty good speed to get all the way back, but the penalty calls are going against Saskatchewan.
Well, that's the mismatch that you want to get when you're Baltimore, because Robert Drummond has the speed of a wideout.
Offside, Saskatchewan. Number 21, that penalty is declined. Deliberate forward pass interference. Saskatchewan number 41. It's a first down.
Robert Drummond will win that every time against Gary Rogers, and Baltimore took advantage on the first play.
Statistically, look at the difference in yards passing for Saskatchewan. And in rushing, Robert Mims has carried for 46 yards. The leader in the CFL, Mike Pringle, has been limited to just 18 yards. Out of the shotgun, the handoff to Pringle. Pringle trying to get to the outside. He's bounced out of bounds by Aaron Ruffin, but will be very close to a first down. Pringle last year finished the season with 2 huge games. He had 200-yard games against both BC and Winnipeg. In total last year, he had 3 games where he ran for better than 200 yards. Once this year, he has accomplished that feat. That was on the Labor Day weekend against the Hamilton Ticats. He's about 2 yards shy of the first down, and here's the option toss to Pringle. Pringle breaks a couple of tackles, Dave Van Bellingham, the safety, comes up to make the stop, but not before Pringle picks up the first down.
Miss. What Pringle does is he makes the first tackler miss. As you see him run through the tackle of Getz before Van Bellingham can come up and bring him down at the 12-yard line. That's what's made him so successful, is that leg drive of running through tacklers.
Brooks Finlay is the Saskatchewan player down on one knee. He was shaken up a little earlier in the football game. He made the initial contact with Pringle.
The winner will receive 2 airline tickets to Toronto.
And the second half is beginning in a similar fashion to the start of the football game, where Baltimore put together a good drive, only to have it stopped on a fumble by Ham. Ham has been able to put the ball into the hands of 4 different receivers. The longest pass, a 14-yarder to slot back Chris Armstrong. Brooks Finlay is now up and heading off to the Saskatchewan Roughrider bench.
Well, you'll see right here is Finlay. He'll collide with Rogers on the play along with Drummond, and he gets his neck bent back. But Mike Pringle has been the story here in this drive. He's rushed for 20 yards here in the second half already, where he was limited to 18 yards in the first half.
First and 10 for Baltimore. They are at the Saskatchewan 12-yard line. Fake inside. Now Ham's in trouble, and Ham is going to be sacked by Ron Getz. Ron Getz came free up the middle, and Tracy Ham is trying to figure out exactly what happened up front.
You get a shot right here up front. Linebacker Robinson not finding much success, but Ron Getz has gotten there already. Neil Fort is a handful, and Getz is picking up where he stopped in the first half.
That takes Baltimore back to the 22-yard line. Second down play. Ham looking into the end zone for Armstrong. He overthrows him, and there's also a penalty flag at the line of scrimmage. So we'll wait for the officials to interpret this call for us. It appears to be going against Baltimore, and I'm quite sure will be declined by
Illegal
Saskatchewan.
procedure. Baltimore 81. That penalty is declined, and it's third down.
The procedure call against Chris Armstrong, and Don Matthews cannot at all be pleased with what he has witnessed in the way of penalties so far today from his team.
Well, they've taken his team out of great field position, and that's been a troublesome point for him here all afternoon. But Saskatchewan, you also have to give them credit because they've played great defense, and when you have an offense playing on his heels, they don't always click.
Huerta with a 29-yard field goal attempt. This one is good. And the Baltimore Stallions have closed within a converted touchdown with 12:36 remaining in the third quarter. The opposing coaches worked together in 1993 in Saskatchewan. As a matter of fact, for one game in Calgary where Don Matthews was rushed to hospital with an emergency appendectomy, Ray Yauch took over as the interim head coach, and they ranked number 3 and 4 on the all-time list in coaching victories. 132 for Yauch, 122 for Matthews. Pass complete to Albert Turner, but he's going to be dropped for a loss as Jones was attempting to set up the hitch screen to the right, read well by both Matt Goodwin and Alfred Bateman.
Back to that sack that Ron Getz had earlier on Tracy Ham. You'll get a shot at Getz here. What they do is they outman Baltimore. Getz is going to come back through the seam free, and he's going to drop Tracy Ham right back in the pocket for the big loss on the play. And it was a great move by Getz. Ham went down.
Yeah, I see it right there, baby.
Very quick move by Ron Getz to get through and bring down Tracy Ham. Now it's Warren Jones with a quick pass to Turner. He'll be close to a first down. Irvin Smith, the corner, came up to make the tackle, and that's something that Coach Matthews was saying as well. He said teams like to make a lot of quick throws against our defensive unit.
Well, the quick throws, and back to that point you made about Ray Yauch coaching that game in Calgary. For that one game, Warren Jones was his quarterback in that game, and they came very close to beating Calgary. And I think that's what really sold him on Warren Jones and being his quarterback of the future. but the quick hitters, Warren has the ability to get the ball out to the wideouts in a hurry.
Third and less than a yard, and as they measured, Warren Jones went over to the bench to confer with his coach. And the Saskatchewan Roughriders, with 11:31 remaining in the third quarter and leading by 7 points, are going after it.
Well, they have to go after it, and they have to chew up the clock. They have to keep the sticks moving.
The Riders have been successful on every third down gamble they've attempted this afternoon, and it looks as though they're going to be a perfect 6 for 6 as Jones drives straight ahead. We talked about the crowd this afternoon being around the 35,000 mark, and the fact that the Stallions are expecting their biggest crowd of the year next week, or in 2 weeks' time, for BC, better than 40,000. Tomorrow, down at the new home of the Baltimore Orioles, Camden Yards, 50,000 people are expected for the visit of the Pope.
JP2's in town.
First and 10, the ball at the 46-yard line. Mims out in the flat, got Charles Anthony turned around, but then Tracy Gravely came over to help out and drive Mims back, but his forward progress will give Saskatchewan a gain of about 1 or maybe 2 yards.
Well, Ray Elgard has yet to make a catch this afternoon. He's gone over in the first half. He had 2 opportunities, one where he was tripped in the first half, one he was jarred from the ball just as it arrived, but he is a guy that you have to go to in a football game because Ray Elgard will win more games than he'll ever lose for you.
811 career catches, 13,005 yards, 78 touchdowns. Warren Jones forced to step up, and his pass knocked down at the line of scrimmage by Gerald Bayless. There's also a penalty flag in the play, a holding call against Saskatchewan.
Holding. Saskatchewan number 57. Penalties decline. It's third down.
The holding call against Dan Payne as he was working against Gerald Bayless.
Well, you'll get a shot of the work right there in the middle. Maxey working against Anderson. And Mikowski, the rookie right tackle, doing a good job in the middle of that offensive line for Saskatchewan.
You talked in the pregame about the difference in punting and how big an edge Josh Miller gives to Baltimore. He has outkicked Brent Mattich by 20 yards. And that difference will increase with this kick by Mattich going out of bounds at the 38-yard line. That was only a 22-yard kick.
Well, Josh Miller, coming into last season with Baltimore, had not expected to play football. He had been out of football for 2 years prior to coming to trainer camp. This season, knowing that the job was his, he went on a stringent off-season workout regimen, gained 15 pounds of muscle, lost some body fat, and it's really improved his kicking. Also, he has a great long snapper that gets the ball directly back to him, and he doesn't have to search for it when it's in flight.
Miller was also saying he feels stronger and much more flexible this year. And this is Mike Pringle up across the 45 to about the 46-yard line. Getz and Ruffin came over to make the tackle.
Tackled by Ron Getz.
Steve Barato, the offensive coordinator, a former assistant coach in Saskatchewan, BC, a head coach in Calgary. And he puts in the Baltimore game plan under the supervision of the head man, Don Matthews. Works quite closely with Tracy Ham in devising the game plan each week. So far, Tracy Ham hasn't been happy with the way things have gone, but it's improving now. Armstrong on the receiving end of the throw, taken out of bounds by Almer, and one of the officials got knocked down over on the far side of the field. Trying to scramble to get out of the way, wound up on his back. That will be a Baltimore first down.
The official getting involved in the play, but he ran off the defensive back on the play, but watch as Armstrong is headed out of bounds as he makes the break to the sideline. We get a freeze right here. We get the official as he falls on his back.
Now it's Pringle straight ahead for about 9 more with Ron Getz making the tackle. And James, you get the feeling here in this third quarter that maybe this Baltimore offense, after perhaps receiving a lecture from both Barato and Matthews at halftime, is beginning to take control.
Well, Barato always felt that if it came to a one-on-one matchup, that his offensive line should win any battle. They average about 315 pounds across the front, as we see Ron Getz, the middle linebacker for Saskatchewan, down on the field, and that would be a devastating blow. But that offensive line for Baltimore, they felt should control the ball. And right now, Mike Pringle is seen to be getting into his stride as he's been churning up the yardage here in the third quarter.
Getz was hurt earlier in the year, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders certainly missed his defensive leadership while he was gone. He appears to be favoring the right knee.
Well, Ivan Gutfrin, the physical therapist for Saskatchewan, out attending to him, and Ron able to go out off on his own power. Some frustration, as you can see on his face.
Well, Don, they've already sold 50,000 of the 54,000 Grey Cup tickets available for the event in Regina, and they're hoping for a Grey Cup-like crowd on Saturday, next Saturday, when Saskatchewan hosts Calgary. Here's team president John Lipp to tell us how you expect to get the crowd in there.
Well, we're calling it a Grey Cup Pride Day, and we want to get 54,000 in there because we want to show the country and all of North America that we're ready for the Grey Cup, and that we want to have a bit of a trial run with that many people in the stands. So this is a big game for us.
And the good news is that in the first half of this game, looks like your team's got a shot at postseason play, defending that 5th and final playoff spot.
If they keep playing like they did in the first half, I will be there.
All right, John, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Scott.
Don?
And we'll have that game from Taylor Field next Saturday. The #1 team in the CFL, #1 in the Northern Division, the Calgary Stampeders, the visiting squad, at Taylor Field in Regina. That's next Saturday. But in the meantime, Calgary has a date at BC Place Stadium on Monday afternoon against the Lions, and we'll have that game for you on CBC television. Cates in the end zone, can't catch up with it. Benson Donaldson with excellent coverage. 3 times today, Tracy Ham has attempted to go deep. Twice now to Cates, once to Armstrong, and on all 3 occasions, much to the dismay of Steve Barato, he has overthrown the receiver.
One of the things that happen when you have an offense that runs the ball as well as Baltimore does is that you don't often throw deep. Tracy a lot of times is throwing underneath, and so the timing is not there with the wideouts.
This time operating from the shotgun on 2nd down. Over the middle, intended for Armstrong, and he immediately goes to the official, claiming that Ulmer interfered with him, but there was no penalty call.
Well, Van Bellingham should have come up with the interception on that overthrow by Ham. He was playing center field. The ball went right through his hands. He came into this game with 6 interceptions. He only had 8 career interceptions prior to getting the starting assignment this year in Saskatchewan. But the ball goes high. Armstrong might have had a cry there against Ulmer, who was riding him back on his back.
And Armstrong barely broke stride as he made a beeline for the officials to complain about a non-interference call.
Oh, he might have been asking if he had tickets to next week's game.
A 38-yard field goal attempt for Huerta. It's good. And the Baltimore Stallions continue to chip away and now trail by just 4. Well, after Saskatchewan scored 17, Baltimore has come back with 13 unanswered points. The Riders this year with a record of 5-9. They started the season 0-5. They have lost 4 football games they feel they could have won. They lost by 6 to Memphis, 7 to Edmonton, 4 to Baltimore last week, and by 1 point to Winnipeg. And now they lead by 4 as Warren Jones was looking for Dan Farthing. Farthing was open. That pass may have been deflected at the line of scrimmage, and Jones is unhappy about something. I'm not sure what.
Well, what Saskatchewan needs to do is be more concerned about how well Baltimore is playing defense here in the second half. They've picked the tempo up. They've jumped the routes on the receivers. They're not allowing Jones the comfort level that he had in the pocket in the first half.
He had excellent protection in the first half as he staked Saskatchewan to a 17-0 lead. Now he'll operate from the shotgun for receivers wide to the right, and that's the direction Jones rolls. Now he's in trouble. Throws the pass, and he was throwing that one away. The closest man to it was Ken Watson. Carter was coming from one side, Payton from the other, forcing Jones to hurry the throw.
With the quad sets to the right, you put one receiver backside. Dan Payne has to buy more time for his quarterback. Alfred Payton beat him cleanly around the corner because Jones wanted to come back in where he had Farthing single on the left and go to him.
Well, the crowd is very much back into this football game. I'm sure they were somewhat stunned by the 17-0 Saskatchewan lead in the first half. This is a much better kick by Matic. Taken by Wright at the 27-yard line. Looking for some blocking to form. He spins off a hit and falls up at the 45. A 48-yard punt that time, 18 yards on the rundown.
Don, only a net of 30 on the punt by Matic, and that is the problem for Saskatchewan. Chris Wright, instant field position, because when you're only gaining 30, that means that Baltimore is winning the battle right there, field position. Nick Subas, the center for Baltimore, has had an outstanding second half. He and Mike Anderson, the center for Saskatchewan, both alumnus of San Diego State, only two teams in the CFL with offensive linemen from that school.
Here's Tracy Ham doing what he does so well, taking off with the football and using a bit of a straight arm on safety, Dave Van Bellingham, to pick up 22 yards.
Now this is the problem that Tracy created for Saskatchewan in the second half last week. He escapes right up the middle. What you have to do is close down your rush lanes. You cannot be undisciplined. You cannot gamble at this point in the game. You have to play the game plan the way Coach Daly drew it up on the chalkboard.
From the 43 of Saskatchewan, it's 1st and 10 Baltimore with 5:40 remaining in the third quarter. And this is the leading rusher, Mike Pringle, taking it inside the 25. They held him to 18 first half yards, but Pringle has been running strongly in this second half. He got a message, obviously, at halftime from head coach Don Matthews.
The key to this play is the counter. You get Subas along with Pordanis. Subas with the kick out on Rogers. Pordanis pulled up inside. Pringle off on a gallop.
Tracy Ham hasn't carried the ball as much this year as he has in the past, but he had 2,000-yard rushing seasons with Edmonton in 1989 and 1990. Handoff to Pringle, and Pringle is hit as he moved into the hole and brought down by Ron Getz and Bobby Jurison. Terrell Ulmer was also there.
Good to see Getz back in the game after having some assistance off the field with that knee injury. But back to Nick Subas, who is getting off the ball. He makes the calls at the line of scrimmage for the offensive line. Last season, Coach Barado felt that Nick Subas was his most valuable offensive lineman. Mike Withacombe has come in and taken that title. Sharp Pordanis was an outstanding lineman in the league last year.
And Pordanis has struggled this year, mainly because he's had a couple of ankle injuries. Tracy Ham looking deep again. Intended for Armstrong, incomplete. And Armstrong goes right up on top of one of the old baseball dugouts, the visiting team baseball dugout, when Memorial Stadium was home to the Baltimore Orioles.
But once again, Tracy Ham struggling and trying to throw the deep ball. They've had a lot of success marching down the field, running the ball. They kept Saskatchewan on the heels. They went away from what got them here, and now they're forced once again with Werther to come on for another field goal attempt.
Last year, Chris Armstrong had 8 games with 100-plus receiving yards. This year, just 3. They all came in a row against Birmingham and twice against Shreveport. Werther's field goal attempt, and that cuts it to 1 point with 4:09 remaining in the third quarter at Memorial Stadium. The fans at Memorial Stadium now much more vocal than they were in the first half when the Stallions trailed 17-0. It's now a 1-point game with 4:07 remaining in the third quarter. Warren Jones looking for some of the same magic that he wielded in the first half. He fakes to the left. Now Payton knocks it loose. The ball is loose, picked up by Baltimore. Alfred Payton stripping the ball from Warren Jones, and Matt Goodwin, always alert, always around the football, picking it up.
Well, his second fumble recovery of the year, but that's a coverage sack. The secondary did a fine job of covering downfield, not giving Warren Jones a go-to man, and the pocket collapsed. Baltimore with the big play defensively.
1st and 10 for the Stallions. They are at the 32. There's the handoff to Pringle. And Pringle has just about 10. And Pringle, who had only 18 yards in the first half, has run for 81 so far in the second.
Warren Jones being stripped from behind by Alfred Payton. He could have just gone for the sack, but he came with the swipe with the right arm to dislodge Jones of the football, and Baltimore with excellent field position at the 20.
His Grambling coach, Eddie Robinson, looking for win 400 today, would be pleased with that one. And what about this play? Gerald Alphen on the receiving end of the touchdown toss, but there's a penalty flag. It's coming back.
Illegal procedure. Baltimore number 81. It's a 5-yard penalty and down repeated.
I think that's about the third time this afternoon that Chris Armstrong has been guilty of a procedure call, trying to get that jump at the line of scrimmage before the ball is snapped.
Well, you know, it's cost Baltimore in a couple of critical situations, but Gerald Alfred ran a tremendous post route to get open, and a nice strike by Tracy Ham. But at the top of your screen, you'll see Armstrong get into that neutral zone, and it cost Baltimore a touchdown.
The ball comes back now to the 26-yard line. 1st and 15. Ham looking for Alphen again. Throw was a little too high as Alphen, the veteran receiver, covered by Joseph.
When you're in a football game, not many opportunities do you get to score, especially when you're in the red zone, and you have to take advantage of them. Saskatchewan was able to get away with allowing one by Baltimore making a mistake. Now they need another big play on 2nd down.
A frustrating afternoon for the coaching staff over on the Baltimore side. Steve Barato most upset with what he has seen a couple of times, particularly the procedure calls, and the most recent that negated an apparent Baltimore touchdown. Into the end zone again. This time Alphen's got it for the major score. His first touchdown as a Baltimore Stallion. Last year he had 18 touchdowns for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And he provides them with experience, with some size at the slot back position. And Tracy Ham took advantage. Carlos Huerta with the point after, and for the first time this afternoon, the Baltimore Stallions have the lead.
Gerald Alfred has provided immediate dividends for Baltimore. Last week's game, he had the 3 big receptions for first downs. This afternoon, his first touchdown as a Stallion. He was a great receiver in Winnipeg. Disputes midway through the season cost him the situation there, but Tracy Ham, if you don't contain him in the pocket, that's where he becomes extra dangerous. And the fighting at the end of that play between Joseph and Alfred, great reception by Alfred with the concentration on the football.
Alfred, a big target at 6'3", 225, and the other slot back, Armstrong, is 6'2", 200 pounds. Good size at those slot back positions, and Gerald Alfred with his first touchdown as a Baltimore Stallion.
You know, he's been an outstanding receiver throughout his career in the CFL. He started in Montreal prior to that franchise folding, moved over to Ottawa, went down to the NFL, did a couple of stints with the Cowboys and the Saints prior to coming back to Winnipeg. where this season where he started and ended up now here in Baltimore.
9 games with Winnipeg this year without scoring a touchdown, and only a second game with the Stallions. He gets into the end zone. Ruffin on the kickoff return breaks a couple of tackles and continues struggling out to the 35-yard line. 1:58 remaining in the third quarter. 23 yards on the return for Aaron Ruffin.
Aaron Ruffin's an interesting story. Early in the season, he had broke his hand, so he missed 6 games as a returner, and he was getting close to that 1,000-yard mark as a punt returner career-wise. And he's been a big asset for Saskatchewan this afternoon. Got a good field position. Now the burden is on Warren Jones to march it down the field and pick up first down.
Warren Jones is finding things much more difficult in this second half than he did in the first. He gives to Robert Mims, who got to the 40-yard line for a gain of 5.
I think a part of that has to go to Baltimore's defense. They played much more disciplined here in the second half. They stayed in their lanes. They've made the big breaks on the football and made the plays when they had to.
In contrast to Mike Pringle, who only had 18 first half rushing yards but has exploded in the second half. Mims in the second half only has 7 rushing yards after 46 in the first half. Low throw as it bounced into the hands of the intended receiver, and now Tom Burgess is unlimbering his throwing arm, so perhaps Ray Yock has a quarterbacking change in mind.
Warren Jones has been pressing the past couple of series, and it's always good to have a quarterback like Tommy Burgess in the wings because you're very aware of his capabilities. In the game he played last week at Taylor Fields, it wouldn't be a bad move to put him into this ball game.
Very definite difference in personality between Jones and Burgess when either is on the field. The personality of the team offensively. The third down punt taken by Wright, and good downfield coverage by the Riders at the 39-yard line. Some pushing and shoving after the whistle. That was a 35-yard punt. Only 4 yards on the return. Seen a lot of this of late in the CFL.
Well, Alvin Walton was right in the middle of that one.
And last week in the game between BC and Edmonton, there was a fair bit of after the whistle activity. Wright slow in getting up. He had the 90-yard punt return touchdown in the first half that electrified the crowd here at Memorial Stadium.
Major foul, unnecessary roughness. Baltimore number 14, 15-yard penalty, first down.
Unnecessary roughness.
Jason Bryant was the culprit on that play, number 14, as he came in late and was starting to push and shove, and the officials flagged him, and Coach Matthews will not be pleased with that call either.
That takes the ball back to the 25-yard line. 31,421, the largest crowd of the year at Memorial Stadium watching the action. Movement at the line of scrimmage. No penalty flag so far, and now there's a late penalty call, and again, this is after the whistle.
And it was really late because the players were getting up off the ground at the time, and I think we're going to get a face mask at the end of that play.
Major foul, face mask. Saskatchewan number 33. First down, Baltimore.
Good call, James, as it goes against Aaron Ruffin. I talked about this being the largest crowd of the season. Next week, Baltimore has a bye, and then for their October 21st game against the BC Lions, they're looking for 40,000 plus here at Memorial Stadium.
Isn't it like the kiss of death? You say something good about Ruffin, what he did well, the next play comes up with a face mask penalty?
First and 10 from the 46-yard line. The handoff to Pringle, and Pringle with a big hole. And he takes the ball to the 48, brought down there by the safety, Dave Van Bellingham. And that is also the final play of the third quarter, as the Baltimore Stallions, after giving up 17 unanswered points, have bounced back to take the lead with 15 minutes remaining. They're in front by 6 here at Memorial Stadium. Every time he runs for better than 100 yards, Mike Pringle treats the O-line to dinner. He'll have to dig into his pocketbook again because he has run for 121 yards this afternoon, 103 of them in the third quarter. Now it's Tracy Ham losing the football, and it's picked up by Orlando.
At the end of the third quarter, when we saw Baltimore starting to pick up success, you're going to get Whitcomb here, you're going to get Subas on the pin down. Dixon will come around Pringle with the back coming up through the hole. You could drive a bus through this hole here. Excellent job by the Baltimore offensive line.
Well, that's something that has happened in this second half. The O-line for Baltimore has taken control. They've been able to pop Pringle into the secondary, something they could not do in the first half or last week at Taylor Field. The throw intended for Armstrong just off his fingertips. Dale Joseph was defending against him.
You look at Baltimore's offense and Mike Pringle having gained 102 yards here in the second half, and you don't want to go to him consistently. You gotta feed him the football, let him run with it. The offensive line is getting the job done up front. You serve two purposes. You also run the time off of the clock.
With his 121 rushing yards this afternoon, Pringle has now had 7 100-yard games this season. One 200-yard game, that was against Hamilton. Miller was attempting to angle this kick out of bounds, and Ulmer almost got fooled on it. Now he's got Baltimore fooled. He picked it up, and Ulmer going down the sidelines is forced out of bounds, but not before he got all the way down to the Baltimore 45-yard line. Terrell Ulmer almost got fooled on that when he thought it was going to go out of bounds. Then he waited and hesitated and trapped Baltimore.
The key is once he gets to the ball, if we roll it through, as we see Baltimore bracket, watch once he bends over, and we'll get a freeze once he bends over, the seam that opens up right through here. And that's what he'll exploit. He'll take it right up the block by Yock on Walton, and he takes off, and he's off to the races.
A 60-yard return by Ulmer after a 40-yard punt by Miller, and there's also a penalty assessed against Baltimore on the play.
That was the big play that Saskatchewan needed. They were dead the entire third quarter. They had no offensive productivity. Now, excellent field position at the 35 starting the fourth.
Objectionable conduct, the call against Baltimore. Hit screen to Donald Narcisse, and Narcisse has a gain of about 8. Alfred Payton came over to make the tackle as Warren Jones continues at quarterback. We thought when we saw Tom Burgess warming up that Ray York was about to make a change.
One of the things, though, going to Narcisse on the hit screen, he has not gone to Ray Elgard. He's going to have to look in Ray Elgard's direction. You're down in that area where Ray Elgard can really be effective for you. He's a very big target, great hands. Got to look at him before the game is over.
Narcisse, 9 catches for 78 yards in this game, 2 touchdowns. The handoff to Robert Mims, and Mims gets into the secondary, driving inside the 20-yard line. As Saskatchewan dominated in the first half, Baltimore took control in the third quarter. 10 first downs to just 1 for Saskatchewan as they erased a 10-point deficit to assume a 6-point lead.
Well, Robert Mims was a big part of that in the first half, controlling the ball on the ground as he picks up his first down here in the second half on the ground. They have to keep him in that tackle. But I like Saskatchewan's position on the field right here.
First and 10 for the Riders. Pass is complete for a very close to a first down to Dan Farthing. There's also a penalty flag downfield on the opposite side.
That's in the position where you'll get the illegal contact with an offensive receiver. Dan Farthing, though, with the nice reception. We saw Dan in the first half come up with one of those that got close to a first down. They should get it with the penalty.
Illegal contact on an eligible receiver. Baltimore number 21. The 10-yard penalty and first down, Saskatchewan.
Irvin Smith was called for the contact. That takes the ball to the 9. It will be first and goal, Saskatchewan.
This is the position on the field with Jones. You want to give yourself the run-pass option. You recall earlier when he hit Narcisse, it was a boot. Does he have that same play called this time around?
He's going to call the play from the shotgun. 3 receivers to the right. into the corner of the end zone, and a touchdown for Farthing. Dan Farthing hasn't been the go-to guy that often this season, but in the corner of the end zone, he makes a huge catch for the major score. Only his third touchdown of the year.
What's exceptionally nice about that for Farthing is that you play on the same team with the Donald Narcisse and Ray Elgar, two of the all-time greats in the CFL, but in a big game situation, you become the go-to guy, and you come up with the big touchdown midway through the fourth quarter.
And now the Riders have an opportunity to take the lead. Ridgway with the point after. And with 11:46 remaining, it's 24-23 Saskatchewan.
Regina.
Dan Farthing's family back in Saskatoon will be happy with his touchdown reception, his third of the year. His two previous major scores this season against Winnipeg and Memphis. But this one has moved Saskatchewan into a 24-23 lead. Wright takes it at the 10-yard line.
Don, they got over 30,000 at Memorial Stadium today, but the hottest ticket in town is for the Pope. John Paul II's on his fourth American visit. He'll conduct a mass at Camden Yards tomorrow morning. They've even turned out some outerwear in honor of the occasion. Later in the day, about 150,000 people will line the streets of downtown Baltimore, all hoping to see the pontiff. He conducted mass before a crowd of 75,000 at Aqueduct Racetrack in New York yesterday, and they say that for once, everybody went home a winner. Don?
Yeah, there have been some days at Aqueduct where a lot of people have left in a very sad state. First and 10 from the 20-yard line for Culver. He can't hang on. Randall defending against him. Randall in his debut for Saskatchewan on the Labor Day weekend against Winnipeg returned an interception for a Rough Rider major score.
Right at the end of the first half in that game, but that was excellent coverage that time, running stride for stride with Culver. Now Tracy Ham in that uncomfortable position of being at 2nd and 10, and it goes back to what Matthew said, the reason why he didn't like to run the ball early in his career, because he didn't like the 2nd and long situation.
Ham is going to throw this one if he gets a chance. He escapes the initial pressure, looks for Chris Armstrong, incomplete. Dale Joseph doing a pretty good job on Chris Armstrong, but Ham didn't get the time that he was receiving in the third quarter.
But that's what makes Tracy Ham so dangerous and so valuable, is his ability to buy the time. As you'll see the pocket collapse, Librant Robinson is going to collapse the pocket from the bottom, but Ham's escapability, getting outside, buying extra time, good effort by Armstrong on the end of that throw.
Robinson is giving the lineman of the year in 1994, Shar Purdonish, all sorts of problems this afternoon. Aaron Ruffin had nowhere to go as Carter was the first man downfield. There's also a penalty flag back at the 45-yard line.
Jason Bryant, I think, is going to be the culprit once again. He's already cost Baltimore 15 for rough play. It's going to come back to haunt him once again.
Rough play is the indication against Baltimore.
Illegal block against Saskatchewan, rough play on Baltimore. We got offsetting penalties here. Someone's going to pick up 5 yards.
Illegal block. Saskatchewan number 21. Major foul, unnecessary roughness. Baltimore number 14. Net 5-yard penalty. First down Saskatchewan and timeout.
Well, Toronto and Ottawa have not yet been officially eliminated from playoff contention in the North, but a win today by Saskatchewan would do it. Winnipeg and Saskatchewan currently tied for the final playoff position. The format has the number 5 team in the north playing the number 1 team in the south in the first round of playoff activity. So it could be a preview of a playoff game if Saskatchewan wins this one against Baltimore. Mims the ball carrier. Maxey made the tackle after a pickup of about 2 yards.
This could be the most crucial drive of the game for Baltimore. They have the ball up in midfield. Make that Saskatchewan. They need to pick up a couple of first downs, get at least in Dave Ridgway's field goal range to get some more points on the scoreboard, because when you're on the road, it becomes very tough, and Baltimore is a very explosive team. They won last week with 3 minutes to go in the game.
Mims managed to pick up 4 at 2nd and 6, Saskatchewan. Jones throws for Donald Narcisse, and Narcisse tries to get back to that forward marker, and he's going to be close. Irvin Smith made the tackle. That's 94 catches now on the season for Donald Narcisse, and he is tied for number 2 position in the league with Alan Pitts of Calgary.
Well, just a great individual effort. As he comes back, he recognizes that his quarterback is in trouble, and that's what all good receivers will do, is come back and help him out. But the struggle to fight for the extra yardage for the first down, you'll see Shorts and Payton going at it, and Jones gets outside, but Payton has had a marvelous afternoon chasing Warren Jones. Irvin Smith is still down. He seems to have a problem with his left shoulder on making that tackle against Donald Narcisse. So that could create a problem for Baltimore. He's been their most consistent cornerback, but now they're going to have to make some defensive adjustments in the secondary.
You know, you talked about Donald Narcisse and the number of catches he has made over the years, and how his mother thought he was too small to play football, 5'9" and 170 pounds. But he has taken a beating. He's made the catches inside. He's made them deep. And he just keeps on chugging along. 7 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. 10 catches for 84 yards for Narcisse. 2 touchdowns this afternoon. Courtney Griffin comes into the ball game as a replacement for Smith. I think we'll see Smith returning, but he's shaken up. Now Narcisse will pick up about 7 more on the hitch screen, with Matt Goodwin coming over to make the tackle. Courtney Griffin, the man who has taken over from Irvin Smith on the corner.
Well, you know, you talk about Narcisse. He has not missed a game since 1988. And when he was missing games in 88, he had a problem with his shins. He had shin splints that were very painful, which did not allow him to go out and be able to run his pass route. So he missed a couple games. Since coming back, he has not missed a game since 1988 and has established a new CFL record for receptions, consecutive games.
Robert Mims on the 2nd down play, and it appears as though he's going to be about a yard shy, maybe even a little more of a first down. Gerald Bayless and Tracy Gravely, along with Grant Carter, all combined to bring down Robert Mims.
Dave Ridgway coming on. We see Ray Yacht wanting to see how far it is, the distance for the first down. But this is well within Dave Ridgway's range. Hasn't had the season he's had in past years, but this one should go with the wind at his back.
So Warren Jones heads off to the bench, and Dave Ridgway now has an opportunity to give Saskatchewan a 4-point lead with 8:17 remaining in the football game.
This could even help to sell him his book, Robo-Kick.
I think sales are going pretty well.
Well, he hit this one, and a few more people will go pick it up.
This is going to be a 45-yarder. It's wide. Out of the end zone comes Wright. Right down the sidelines. Gets away from Ridgway. Still on his feet, and he's going to finally be tripped up, but not before he got to the 20. Wright with a 90-yard punt return touchdown in the first half brings this missed field goal attempt back 95 yards. And the Riders, I think, believe there was an illegal block almost at the point where Wright grabbed the football.
Well, Don, I think they're going to have a valid complaint after the play. We'll go back and take a look at it, but great field position for Tracy Ham.
1st and 10 from the 20-yard line. The give is to Pringle. And Pringle will only get about a yard, maybe 2, tackled by Ron Getz.
It was a great individual effort by Wright on the play, but at times you need a block. And you'll see a block coming up right here. Get a freeze right there. And the officials seem to have missed that one, but Wright went up the sideline and gave Baltimore great field position down at the 20-yard line.
There's the spin move by Wright to get away from Ridgway. And then
little Baryshnikov there.
Mims comes over to make the tackle. Now Ham's in trouble, and down he goes. And it's Aaron Ruffin who came up and dropped Tracy Ham for a loss, but the Baltimore Stallions are in position to take the lead with a field goal attempt by Huerta.
Great spin move. Watch as Ridgway tries to make the tackle. And Ridge is not that great a tackler. He's not going to hit anybody, but, you know, he just takes a head down, look like he's looking for a place to lay under a couch or something.
I think Ridgway was hoping that Wright might trip over. So this will be a 32-yard field goal attempt by Huerta. It's good. And Baltimore has a 2-point lead with 6:24 left in the football game. Both coaches, James, yesterday talked about special teams and what an impact they have had. Ray Yawk saw his team move into scoring position with the punt return by Ulmer. And Don Matthews has seen Chris Wright return a punt 90 yards for a major score, and a missed field goal 95 yards that enabled Baltimore to kick the go-ahead field goal. Now it's Aaron Ruffin trying to make a cut, taking up a big chunk of turf as he slipped just across the 25-yard line. 16 yards on the run back.
Well, in the CFL, specialty teams is considered 1/3 of your offense, and you have to have some people who are willing to go out there and sell themselves out on those plays. And in the CFL, most players have to do dual duty, offense, defense, or special teams to go along with that. And we've seen some exceptional performances this afternoon by both squads.
6:12 remaining, 26-24. Baltimore leads. Saskatchewan 1st and 10 from just across the 30-yard line. Warren Jones from the shotgun to Albert Turner. Turner made Griffin miss and will get about 8 yards before Tracy Gravely comes over to help out. They'll spot the ball between the 38 and the 39. It looks like 2nd and 3.
Well, we got a seesaw battle going here, back and forth, kickers trading field goals, but Saskatchewan, Warren Jones has been teetering on the edge. He has to find more consistency. Ray Elgard last week, 5 receptions for 97 yards. Today, a goose egg.
Handoff inside to Robert Mims, and Mims just got across the 40-yard line. Ray Yawk looking to see exactly where the ball is positioned, and I think at this point he'll be going after it.
Well, he's pointing out that because he knows his offense needs to pick up the yardage. Ray Elgard may not have a reception, but he's more valuable to the offense more than just a receiver. He's one of those guys who'll go stick his nose in the middle of a pile, make the block, hoping that Mims can pick up the first down afterwards.
It's going to be 3rd and inches. Warren Jones puts his head down and simply drives straight ahead behind veteran center Mike Anderson.
Mike Anderson having another stellar season for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, a longtime member of this offensive line and one holdover from the 80s regime. And he's been around since 1984 when he broke in with the Green Riders. And you'll get a shot right here of those big green hogs up front, moving that line of scrimmage, picking up the first down for Jones.
Anderson, 202 consecutive games. Only Roger Aldag and Reggie Whitehouse have played more games for Saskatchewan along the offensive line. Elgard on the receiving end of the throw. And this is going to be, it appears, just shy of a first down. But James, you talked about Saskatchewan having to get the ball into the hands of Ray Elgard in key situations. And Warren Jones was obviously tuned in.
Well, it's one of those things you can count on, like it being cold in Regina for Grey Cup. Ray Elgard catching a pass during a football game. You know, he's a guy that you have to have involved in your offense. Coach Yock is well aware of that. He's been blocking all afternoon, but in crunch time, look for him because he won't let you down. He'll make the big reception for you.
And it is a Saskatchewan first down.
And Ray Elgard with his first of this afternoon, 5 last week against Baltimore for 97, 1 today for 11 yards. And now you're seeing Harles being more involved in the offense and Saskatchewan keeping the drive alive.
Tied for number 4 on the all-time list for touchdown receptions. Only 2 this year, but 78 in his career. Out of the shotgun, the pass was knocked down by Alfred Payton at the line of scrimmage, actually in the Saskatchewan backfield. Payton, a little unhappy the way he has played over the last 5 games, where he has had only 1 sack during that time. Vowed he would be much improved today.
Well, sometimes sacks can become overrated. They're a great statistical number, but I think the true measuring stick of defensive players is how many times you put the quarterback on the ground, how many times you deflect passes. And we've seen Alfred Payton have an entire game today of deflecting, sacks, and getting to the quarterback.
Donald Narcisse has a first down at the 45-yard line. And Donald Narcisse is now just 1 catch behind Dave Sapunjas for the CFL lead.
Is there a defensive back in CFL that Donald Narcisse is not victimized? It is just uncanny how he continues to get open game in and game out. He knows where the first down sticks are, sets down. Jones throws a strike. Saskatchewan keeps the drive marching.
3:10 remaining. First and 10 Saskatchewan. From the Baltimore 45-yard line, Jones out of the shotgun, hits screen for Albert Turner, and Turner battles his way inside the 40, brought down by Tracy Gravely.
You spoke about earlier what Jones likes to throw the ball to the wideouts. And what that situation creates is you force the defense to run from sideline to sideline, so it has a tendency to wear down a defense late in the game. And that's what you see right now with Saskatchewan marching, and they're down at the 40-yard line.
2:57 remaining at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. The Stallions leading by 2 points. Ray Yock has seen his team move into field goal range. This is certainly within the range of Dave Ridgway, and they are looking at 2nd and 3.
This was the point last week when Baltimore took the lead in the ball game with 3:24 remaining at Taylor Field. Now the turn is for Saskatchewan to see if they can duplicate that feat.
Handoff to Mims, and Mims got to the line of scrimmage, strips it back to Warren Jones. Jones is throwing. They make the catch, and Turner takes it down to the 4. Unbelievable play. That one was not in the playbook, I assure you of that.
Don, we've seen 2 miraculous plays this afternoon by the Saskatchewan Roughriders. First with Brett Maddich, but this time Robert Mims. He's caught in the backfield by Payton. Had enough alertness to pitch the ball back to Jones, but what Jones did with the football was totally uncanny. To find Turner streaking down the sideline, catching him at the 4-yard line, craft, but great play and execution and alertness by the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
34 yards. Mims was simply searching for a first down when he was stopped. He flipped it back to Jones, and now the Riders are in position to take the lead, and Mims, driving straight ahead, will get to about the 2-yard line with 2:04 remaining.
You know, to go back to that play, now, as you said, it wasn't in the playbook, but who would have thought that Jones would even have the presence to look downfield? It looked like he had a clear running lane, but he pulled up as he saw his streaking receiver Turner running down the sideline and threw a perfect strike.
Well, we have seen 2 from the weird and wacky this afternoon. The play with Jones throwing to Turner and the kick that was blocked, with Matic getting it and kicking it again.
But that's one of the things with Jones possessing the mobility that he has, is that he could threaten the defense once he got the ball back from Mims to get outside, as we see Matt Goodwin being looked at by the medical staff of Baltimore, and he's a valuable member of that defense. But Jones, with the arm strength, also running to his left to fire the football.
But give Robert Mims some credit, realizing that he was stopped, turning around and seeing that Jones was all alone, uncovered.
And Robert Mims, as we spoke about earlier, was out of football a year and a half ago, back in Arizona, doing basically nothing, he said, just sitting around waiting on a phone call. The phone call came from Dan Rambo. Coach Yock, happy to have him here in the fold in Saskatchewan, and he's paid dividends this afternoon for the Roughriders.
Well, a large group of Saskatchewan fans made the trip to Baltimore, the first ever visit to Baltimore by the Roughriders. And boy, oh boy, will that be a happy charter flight heading back to Regina tonight if the Roughriders prevail here at Memorial Stadium. Second and goal. The ball is at the 3-yard line. Actually make it a little closer to the 2.
Well, this is a big down for both teams. Baltimore's defense needs to find some surge here to get across the line of scrimmage and try to disrupt this play. But Jones, his mobility, the largest asset on this play.
And Jones is going to run this second down play out of the shotgun. Into the corner, intended for Farthing. He makes the catch, but he won't get in. He, I think, might have lost a yard on the play.
He actually looked like he lost a yard on the play, but what's more important for Baltimore is that they killed the clock when Farthing went out of bounds. You would have thought that Saskatchewan would want to keep it in between the hash marks. We talked about Elgard on many occasions. This is a situation where you like to look for your big slot back in the end zone. They went to the outside. Ridgway on the field once again.
Well, David Ridgway with 6 Saskatchewan punting records, or place-kicking records. And this might be one of the biggest field goals he has kicked during his career. None more important, of course, than the 1989 Grey Cup, but this is one that could keep alive the Grey Cup aspirations of the Saskatchewan Roughriders in 1995. High snap, the kick is up, and it is good. Matic did a good job of pulling down the high snap.
Well, that was an excellent job by Matic to get the ball, but the placement of it, to get it down, get the laces turned so that Ridgway would not be kicking the rigid side of the football. We'll get a good look at it here on the replay as Matic goes high, gets it down in the spot that he was showing for Ridgway, got the ball tilted the way David likes it. Perfect kick by Ridgway.
You know, a lot of times the holder doesn't get credit for bringing that ball down and getting it pinned properly for the place kicker, and Matic did an excellent job.
Well, it's ever so important because time in and time out, the kicker should not have to think about what he's doing. He just strides and strokes, and that time Ridgway did it.
Saskatchewan leading by 1, 2 minutes remaining. Ham for Culver, he's open. Down to the 50 of the Roughriders. 24 yards on the game.
Jim Daly looking over his game plan as Shannon Culver was able to beat Ruffin inside, make that Randall inside on the post route, but Randall was the close. Now Saskatchewan has to find something in that defensive playbook to come up and stop Baltimore.
Baltimore needs another first down to get within range of Carlos Huerta. Hand off to Pringle, and Pringle may take it all the way. Penalty flag as Pringle is hauled down out of bounds at the 3. This could be an illegal block against Culver.
Shannon Culver, you're exactly right, Don, came up and had a hold on the defensive back, and the official right on top. They're going to bring this one back. Holding call by Culver, but a great run by Pringle.
I think it occurred after the first down had been picked up.
Holding Baltimore number 1. After yards have been gained, it's a 10-yard penalty from the point where the ball was held at the time of the foul. And first down.
It's going to go from the point of the foul where Culver had the holding but it's really going to cost Baltimore. We'll get a great shot watching the left of your screen as Culver comes in, and he's holding right there on Randall, and he was caught by the official. Good call by the official on the play.
1:32 remaining. First and 10, Baltimore. They are at the Saskatchewan 35-yard line. And now they are definitely within the field goal range of Carlos Huerta, and Mike Pringle will improve upon the field position, getting inside the 25-yard line.
This is where that huge advantage that Baltimore has offensive line-wise really starts to show. You can see how they're wearing on the Saskatchewan defensive line. They didn't spend much time on the field in the first half, but here in the second half, they spent more time on the field than what Saskatchewan's offense has.
18 carries for 158 yards. Sharp Pordanis, the lineman of the year last year, has been hampered this year by stress fractures in both ankles. He was saying yesterday that he is still having problems with his right ankle, doesn't have the power he needs in trying to set up his blocks, and Brant Robinson has been giving him a bad time all afternoon.
But even in the games where they missed Pordanis, it showed the depth that Baltimore had in their rosters, because Withacombe came in at the left tackle and just dominated at that position. Now he's playing left guard beside Pordanis.
1:20 remaining. Boy, oh boy, if the Riders had a play back, it might be that second down play at the 3-yard line. Baltimore drives straight ahead to pick up the first down.
I believe you're so right on that. The telling point of the game, they had 2nd and 2 at the 2-yard line. Why not take Robert Mims on a dive play? If he gets to the 1, go again, gamble on 3rd down, because if you don't make it, Baltimore has 109 yards that they have to march down the field. Instead, you gamble on a wide pass and you go for the field goal. Now Baltimore has the ball at the 24-yard line.
And Tracy Ham is going to use up as much of the clock as possible. He wants to be in position for Huerta to kick the game-winning field goal, or else put it in the end zone with Pringle. And Pringle keeps it on the ground to the 20-yard line, stopped there by Wayne Drinkwalder. Pringle came into this game needing to average 171.3 yards per game over his final 3 to crack 2,000 yards on the season.
Well, he was held in check in the first half. He only gained 18 yards on the ground in the first half. And we get a shot of Carlos Huerta, one of the more accurate field goal kickers in the CFL, came over to the dispersal draft from Las Vegas.
27 seconds remaining. Hand off to Pringle again, following the block of Dixon. He gets to the outside, and he goes out of bounds inside the 5-yard line with 18 seconds remaining. Well, Pringle now has 178 after a first half in which the Riders held him to just 18 yards.
Well, just an outstanding job. What Mike Pringle does is that he waits on his blocking. He allows the big guys up front to get their blocks, and then he just explodes when he sees a seam, turned the corner, got to the 3-yard line.
27-26, Saskatchewan leads. Baltimore first and goal, 18 seconds remaining. The ball at the 3-yard line, handoff to Pringle, and he is stacked up by Ron Getz with help from Dan Rashovich. Getz was limping earlier in the ball game, but despite the pain and the problem with his knee, he remains in there.
Don, and Ron is still limping. I mean, this is a very gutsy performance by that young man playing middle linebacker. But he has a formidable task, this Baltimore offensive line. Now the big question, does Baltimore go for it once again on 2nd, or do they send in Huerta?
Baltimore has called a timeout. Tracy Ham was desperately requesting help from the bench and decided finally to call a timeout. And now comes over to talk with offensive coordinator Steve Barretta.
See Greg Marshall there, the defensive line coach for Saskatchewan. He actually played here with the Baltimore Colts 2 games, the last 2 games of the 1978 season. So he knows what it's like to play defense in this stadium, and he's trying to encourage on his defensive unit right now for Saskatchewan.
And I was asking him about that game, 1978 against Buffalo. He said we lost.
And he almost had his first career sack in that game. Went right in, had that deer in the headlight look, and missed the quarterback.
14 seconds remaining. Tracy Ham takes a knee. Wise move by Ham. He didn't want to run around too much, and he took the ball back into perfect position for Huerta to split the uprights.
That's the way that play was designed. You wanted to bring it back to the middle because there was a very severe angle being on the right hash mark. So if you line it up right in the middle, you're well within his range and let him just pooch it through. Saskatchewan's going to take a timeout trying to freeze Huerta. He'll walk around, but Coach Ray Yark has fought gallantly here this afternoon with his troops, and it's all going to come down to a kick once again.
Well, Ray Yark talked about the 0-5 start for his football team this year and the number of close games his team has lost. Won by 4 points to Baltimore, 1 point to Winnipeg, 6 points to Memphis, 7 points to Edmonton. And now it looks as though he could lose by 2 here at Memorial Stadium to Baltimore. Huerta with a 21-yard field goal. It is good. Well, if the Stallions, with 5 seconds remaining, hang on to this 2-point lead, they will clinch first place in the Southern Division. That was their objective today. The Saskatchewan Roughriders, desperately struggling for a playoff spot, gave Baltimore all they could handle.
And this is what it came down to, the spot and the kick. And I think if you go back to a point that's really going to trouble the Saskatchewan Roughriders in this game, you talked about the pass, the farthing, but you have to go a bit back further than that. You have to look at the third quarter when they were only able to pick up 1 first down that entire 15-minute stretch, and Baltimore took control of this football game.
Well, as a Hail Mary in the playbook of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Donald Narcisse makes the catch. Narcisse flips it out looking for Elgard, but Bradley has it. And that's the ball game. Narcisse made the catch. He was looking to flip it off in desperation, but Baltimore came up with the ball, and Ray Yark has seen his team fight valiantly but lose by 4 at home and lose by 2 here at Memorial Stadium to the Baltimore Stallions.
Well, Baltimore, you can't say enough about this franchise. They're able to fight from adversity and come back and stick with their game plan, and that's what they did. Saskatchewan played one well of a ball game 2 weeks in a row against their Stallion ball club, but I think they're really the key is that they're the class of the Southern Division.
29-27 as Baltimore clinches first place in the South. Scott?
All right, Don, a 90-yard run back for a touchdown in the first half, a 100-yard missed field goal return for Chris Wright in the second half. 2 huge plays in a close game. Chris, this is the biggest game of your young CFL career?
Yes, it surely is. I'm just happy, we came together as a team. The first half, we came out sluggish, and, we needed a spark. So, our special teams, we came together.
Here's the missed field goal return. I want to take particular note of the spin move here. Describe it for us.
Well, I gave him a little inside move and a little shake move, and he didn't really bite on it. So I knew I had him because he was falling. So I just jumped and spin because he fell in front of me, and then I knew I was back out to the races. But I made a misread on my last block. I should have stayed to the outside because my line was blocking. But, it was an overall team effort.
Nicely done, Chris. Thanks for your time. So the Baltimore Stallions have laid claim to first in the South, 13-3 now after a 29-27 win over Saskatchewan. Tough it was in Baltimore.